we have such different perspectives and different ideas, different backgrounds, and we bring them together.
They want to make changes, they want to move for a different future. They know that they have the power to make it happen.
If we could enable the students to challenge us, that's the biggest thing we can do, simply to enable them to challenge.
We're constantly discovering new things, and that's changing the way I see education. I don't see it as a classroom anymore. I don't see it as an institution. I see it as a way of going through life.
Hello, welcome back. I am Anna. I'm Abra. And we'll just be speaking a little bit more about COVID initiatives to begin with, specifically about elderly people in our communities. And then we're going to be introducing Kira. And yeah, so then you'll see a video at the end. Do you want to start with COVID initiatives?
Sure. So part of the goodness of UWC, I would argue, is the diversity that we have here in terms of not just culture and nationality, but also socioeconomic status and ability in that way as well. And so one of the main things that we've seen about COVID is that it is targeting populations unproportionately, especially those that are elderly. We've seen that in terms of the infection rates and also the mortality rates, which is very sad to look at, but it's something that we want to talk about more in terms of COVID, just to bring some more awareness about how that's impacting people. Part of, again, the idea at UWC is to create intercultural and interpersonal understanding. And so in terms of COVID, it's very important that we understand how certain populations are targeted more than others in order to understand how the issue is affecting people differently. And that can be said for UWC as a mission in general. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I would say, as Aubrey was saying, UWC is a mission. We want to unite people, and we want to create kind of a peace and sustainable environment. But I would also say that one of our values is making sure everybody in our community, no matter from where they come from, what socioeconomic status they're from, is supported. And I think that that should and is being reflected a little bit more into how we view our communities back at home. Sometimes we can go back home and we will realize that there are minority communities or communities that we should be helping out. Sandro before was mentioning how he saw kind of this issue, and he saw that being a UWC student was a point of privilege, and so he went back into his community and he decided to do something about it. And I think that as we reflect a little bit more upon UWC values and people in UWC in general, we also should reflect upon how we support each other and also how we support our communities back home. I think it's important to recognize that in every community back home we have more vulnerable communities, and especially when there's inequality or things such as disparity between just socioeconomic status or just income, it is very important to recognize that and then also take that into account when trying to find solutions or trying to find mitigations for issues that are affecting us. And I think that that is especially prominent during the COVID-19 pandemic, since a lot of us are at a point of privilege, whether it's with knowledge or socioeconomic status, where we could help people in our community and we could go back. For example, Aubrey went to their school to make masks, and that was they recognized that they were in a point of privilege and came back and did that for the entire summer. So I think that's very that has a lot of merit in there.
And we see that happening all over our UWC campus, even right now with COVID responses. So CAS activities, for example, have had to change drastically in how they operate. Whereas previously we would meet in person and have weekly meetings. That's not always possible now that we have some students that can't make it back to campus, or some students that have even been redirected.
Я знаю, да, это как
For
раз я знаю, что
example, we have a new CAS and a
нам
second
кто-то присоединился.
now,
Да, это наши коллеги здесь из UWC, которые будут подключать нас к трансляции. Девочка, которая нас, точнее, тебя будет интервьюировать, Даша, я думаю, она тоже скоро будет.
А как бриф ты должна была мне сделать, скажи?
Да, особо никакой, просто то, что я подам знак, как только мы должны будем начать. Пожалуйста, не больше, не меньше 25 минут говорите.
It's really good to see so many UWCs collaborating, even in spite of COVID, to make sure that we are making that impact and continuing to take those values even in times of such a hardship. And yeah, again, in relation to elderly populations and those that are vulnerable, that's really who we should be talking most about in terms of COVID, especially as young people that are least affected by the virus. It's up to us to create that kind of future that we want and create that safety for those communities that are most vulnerable. So in terms of UWC, I hope that that's something that we carry forward, and I'm sure that it will be. But in the meantime, we can have a lot of good discussions about it, make sure that we're spreading that awareness even if we can't be back home directly right now.
Yes, exactly. And again, back to mutual respect and responsibility, recognizing that we as individuals may not be able to have as drastic symptoms as others, or as individuals we may be able to have better healthcare as others. We need to recognize that we are a part of a community where it may be this school, or it may be the Dilijan community, it may be Armenia, or worldwide, where if we are not conscious of what we're doing and have mutual respect with each other, then we could be in turn hurting vulnerable communities such as the elderly. So for example, if you are walking around outside and you're not wearing your mask and you accidentally run into somebody and you give COVID to somebody else, it can all kind of snowball into a different effect, and just being mindful of that is something that we hold as, I think, a value in our communities.
And that's been a big impact for us as well in terms of coming back to campus, is making sure that we're not only limiting any virus that we may bring back traveling or from our home countries in this community, but also in Armenia and Dilijan as a whole, making sure that we are being responsible in the way that we travel and the way that we take initiative, especially in terms of wearing masks, washing hands, taking all of those safety precautions. And I can't emphasize enough how important that is in making sure that this community that we are gifted, and it's a privilege to live in and to get to exist as a part of, that we are giving back to it and not causing harm to it. And I think that that's super important, and I'm very, again, proud of the way that UWC has handled the COVID initiatives, especially in terms of how it affects the home country and neighboring countries surrounding, again, really relating back to Sandro and the initiatives that we've seen in terms of CAS. So yeah, it's been good. I'm really proud of the way that COVID has been handled by our school in terms of interpersonal understanding and respect, and all of the precautions that we've taken. We've seen that students immediately get transferred into a 2-week quarantine when they arrive on campus, and that's to make sure that the virus isn't being spread anywhere, and that we are taking all available precautions. And then at the end of that, we get COVID testing again to make sure that we are being as safe as possible. So I'm very proud. I imagine that other UWCs are doing the same thing, and that the movement as a whole is taking those safety precautions to make sure that vulnerable populations like the elderly are being protected and not being put to risk because of our ability to get an education. So
yeah, exactly. And Aubrey mentioned how we have multiple COVID testing, and I think that being a community that requires such upkeep, for example, we have a beautiful campus and we require a lot of upkeep in the campus in general. We have amazing people and staff who are giving us lunch every day, who are cooking for us, and just kind of being mindful of the ground staff's effort as well, I think is very important. Being mindful that one must wear a mask around them, and one must, around everybody in general, but also specifically to not give them the virus. A lot of them tend to be over the age of 50 or something like that, and so it's very important for us to be mindful, especially with elderly communities, that it could be that something slips through the cracks, but we can't allow that to happen, I would say. Recognizing both their efforts in the school and also just their communities in general, and how we impact their communities as well. So yeah. we can go into the introduction.
Sure, let's talk about Kira.
Yeah. Do you want to read it or?
I'm good either way. What do you want to do?
Okay. I will go ahead and read a short introduction to Kira. And again, I will probably not be very good at introducing her last name, so I will refrain from doing so. She's a program manager in Timoshenko Foundation, creator of the coalition Zabota Raidom, and that means the care is near. She's a member of the Council for Social Entrepreneurship in the State Duma, at State Duma. And the project that I mentioned, Care is Near, also known as Zabota Raidom, is emerged as a response to the situation of uncertainty when resources are limited and the scope of work is increasing. It supports NGOs that work with elderly, provide public workers and volunteer with verified and useful information, and work out the algorithms of actions. So just to summarize, they do a lot of work with the elderly and social work in general for just the public, and so that's kind of tying back into the whole mutual respect and responsibility, and how we have to be mindful of all of our communities, as we have mentioned multiple different times, I think, in the past couple of minutes. So this is, it's an incredible initiative, I would say, for somebody to be mindful at a young age even that they could be affecting and could be helping people at an older age.
Yeah, and I think something unique to note about this work as well is that it's supporting pre-existing NGOs. So it's not even just reinstating a new purpose, but making sure that, especially in times of limited resources because of COVID, that already existing systems of support are continuing to be helped and made sure that they're able to do the impact and the work that they need to do. Especially in times of COVID, that is super uncertain. These vulnerable populations like the elderly are being put at even higher risk than they would typically. So again, vulnerable populations are those that we need to be focusing on, because COVID is targeting those that are already being affected by other external factors. So we want to get into Kira now, and she can introduce herself. All right, see you.
Hi.
Уже свыше 40 тысяч жизней унес коронавирус с тех пор, как все началось.
COVID-19 уже в 80 российских. Медики предупреждают, в зоне риска заражения в основном находятся пожилые люди. Им рекомендовано не выходить из дома без острой необходимости.
Мы стали выявлять невидимых людей. Это те, которые живут в своих квартирах, не выходят из дома вообще в силу своей немощности.
Люди были напуганы, была паника, была растерянность. Мы предложили организовать колл-центр по приему обращений пожилых граждан.
Разместила телефоны горячей линии, памятки, как вести себя, к кому обращаться.
Мы доставляли продуктовые наборы, вещи первой необходимости, перчатки, маски.
И у нас не только психологическая служба, у нас еще юридическая служба, социальная служба для тех людей, которые оказались в ужасающих условиях.
Перед тем, как выехать, позвоните, пожалуйста, участнику. Бабушки все предупреждены, но они ждут вашего звонка.
Куда можно поставить?
Вам берегите здоровье.
Мы не можем.
Мы не заразные.
Что-то надо будет?
Ой, девчонки. Мурашки по телу.
В эту камеру вы будете разговаривать со своим сыном.
Сыном.
Я чувствую, что я не совсем брошенный человек, что кому-то еще я не совсем безразлична, а это много значит.
Они так о нас заботятся. Дай Бог здоровья. Всем дай Бог здоровья.
Единственное, что бы я хотела сейчас, это просто вас обнять и расцеловать.
Коалиция – это про то, как много могут сделать люди, когда просто объединяются.
Я чувствую, что от каждого из нас многое зависит.
Мы вместе огромная сила.
Солидарность – это норма.
Солидарность – это норма.
Солидарность – это норма.
Солидарность – это норма.
Давайте начать.
Окей, здорово.
Просто Даша скажет, что мы начинаем, да?
Да, ну мы, по-моему, увидим, что мы начинаем. Все, здорово, мы начинаем. Да. Всем привет еще раз. Сегодня со мной Кира Янкелевич, программный директор фонда Тимченко и также автор коалиции такой замечательной организации «Забота рядом». Очень рада мы видеть вас, Кира, сегодня с нами, и думаю, беседа у нас сегодня будет замечательная. Но для начала расскажите нам, пожалуйста, о своей деятельности, об организации и также о всем, чем вы занимаетесь.
Всем добрый день, добрый вечер, у кого уже вечер. Спасибо, Даша, за представление. Мне тоже сегодня очень приятно быть здесь и рассказать всем, кого это интересует, чем же занимается программа «Старшее поколение». Вообще фонд Тимченко, наверное, это одна из первых организаций, которая, в принципе, подняла тему старшего поколения в России. Еще где-то 10 лет назад тема была очень стигматизирована и практически нигде не звучала, и фонд Тимченко запустил конкурс, называется «Активное поколение» в 2012 году, который был направлен на активизацию как раз старших лидеров, на то, чтобы дать им возможность почувствовать себя, скажем так, новыми старшими, да, не людьми, которые доживают свой возраст, а людьми, которые еще очень много чего могут научить, могут передать свой опыт. И конкурс как раз был направлен на то, чтобы выявить таких людей и помочь им внутри своих комьюнити, да, сообществ, организовать проекты с вовлечением пожилых людей, с вовлечением молодых. И, в общем, этот конкурс шел порядка 8 лет и дал очень успешные результаты. 1500 проектов были поддержаны, огромное количество регионов участвовало, порядка 42 регионов. И, конечно, мы делали оценку по итогам 8-летнего цикла, и оказалось, что самый главный эффект, который действительно произошел, это то, что люди старшего поколения стали себя по-другому ощущать. Они стали чувствовать себя полноправными членами общества, они стали понимать, что они сами могут инициировать что-то, а не ждать, когда что-то сделают, не быть в ситуации тех людей, о которых заботятся, а самим заботиться о тех, кому нужна помощь. И где-то 2 года назад стало понятно, что эта тема довольно хорошо раскачалась за это время. Уже сейчас тема старшего поколения звучит практически на всех уровнях, и на уровне правительства, и на уровне общественных организаций. За это время появилось очень много организаций, которые стали заниматься целевой аудиторией, старшей целевой аудитории, фестивалей, обучающих программ, и стало понятно, что нужно какой-то следующий шаг, и мы повернулись в сторону людей, которые, к сожалению, уже не так активны по причине того, что они имеют разные ограничения по здоровью или имеют когнитивные нарушения, и чаще всего эти люди, к сожалению, не имеют даже доступа к тому, чтобы выходить на улицу, да, их называют узниками квартир. Если у них есть родственники, то это единственная их связь с миром, а если нет, то, к сожалению, они вообще теряют эту связь и держат ее только через социальных работников, если такие есть у них, или в редких случаях через волонтеров. И стало понятно, что, к сожалению, всех ресурсов, даже которые есть у государства, не хватит для того, чтобы помочь каждому такому человеку. И мы поняли, что нужно что-то делать. Эта тема очень сложная, и во всем мире ее уже очень давно развивают. Она, да, звучит как community care, это то, что есть в Европе и в Израиле. В Японии эта тема очень популярна, потому что стареет, и процент стареющего населения выше, чем молодых людей. Надо сказать, что в мире, в принципе, наблюдается тенденция, что через 40-50 лет людей старшего возраста будет больше, чем молодых. И, конечно, мир должен меняться под эти обстоятельства. Невозможно продолжать жить так же, как мы жили, и делать вид, что ничего не меняется. Поэтому и экономика, и урбанистика, все должно быть, скажем так, все должно помогать этим людям чувствовать себя хорошо, продолжать жить качественно. интегрироваться в социум. И мы как раз в начале этого года фонд запустил конкурс, который называется «Ближний круг», и он как раз был направлен на то, чтобы выявить все интересные практики, которые есть внутри сообществ, и направлены на то, чтобы помогать людям и находить одиноких людей пожилых. И мы хотели, чтобы эти практики стали видными для того, чтобы другие организации, которые еще по какой-то причине этим не занимаются, могли их увидеть, оценить и взять на вооружение. Но вмешалась пандемия.
Да, к сожалению.
Как мы знаем, пошла не совсем по плану. Но скорее пандемия подчеркнула важность этой темы и показала, что эта группа действительно настолько уязвима, что уже нет времени ничего ждать, да, и нужно с места в карьер начинать делать, потому что, к сожалению, многие люди могут просто не дождаться, пока мы до них дойдем и поможем.
Да, ну я согласна с вами, вот что на самом деле тема оказания помощи взрослому населению, помочь им как-то оставаться активными, на самом деле очень важно. Я вчера увидела где-то новости, что как раз в Японии больше 80 тысяч человек, им больше 100 лет. То есть, ну, как бы действительно такая тенденция есть, и нужно развивать очень многие организации. Ну вот и вы затронули тему, да, пандемии, что случилась такая, ну, как бы непредвиденная, да, ситуация, затронула это очень много стран, очень много людей. И вот именно людей старшего поколения, что вы увидели, какая была тенденция среди этих людей, и как ваша организация была направлена на помощь именно вот этой группе населения?
Ну, наверное, это не секрет, что в тот момент, когда объявили карантин в России, да и во всем мире, это было примерно, да, ну, плюс-минус, там, с разницей в неделю, в две, все были сильно в растерянности, никто не понимал, что делать, все понимали, что очень большому количеству людей нужна помощь, но как помочь, как сделать так, чтобы одномоментно дойти до всех нуждающихся, это такой был большой вопрос. И, конечно, у очень многих некоммерческих организаций началась паника, потому что люди понимали, что времени нет, надо немедленно что-то делать, а что делать никто не знал. Более того, никто не знал, сколько продолжится карантин, и насколько опасна болезнь. Все уже понимали, что она действительно опасна, но последствия до сих пор, мне кажется, да, мы не знаем. И очень много было неизвестных, и, конечно, это внесло некий такой ступор в головы людей. И вот мои воспоминания, что буквально там первый день, когда объявили карантин, и стало понятно, что людей 65+ отправляют на самоизоляцию, да, и до этого, в общем-то, это было уже понятно, что есть люди, которые одиноки, и никто не знает об их существовании, и если в обычное время они еще каким-то образом справлялись, они могли попросить, возможно, соседей принести им продукты, они могли сами дойти до банкомата, снять свою пенсию и купить что-то, то в ситуации не просто карантина, а в ситуации, когда это становится опасно для их жизни, они просто физически могут угаснуть, да, внутри своих квартир. Потому что, во-первых, безусловно, какие-то первые базовые потребности – это еда, да, но не менее важный фактор – это социальная, вообще, как бы социальная сфера, да, которая становится отрезанной, они абсолютно одиноки. Следовательно, что для пожилого человека это сразу снижается физическое здоровье и также когнитивные функции, которые, конечно, поддерживаются в том числе и общением. И те люди, у которых уже есть проблемы, было понятно, что произойдет деградация, а те, у кого нет, она тоже ждала, потому что, соответственно, без какого-то взаимодействия в одиночестве, да, люди, конечно, начинают прям реально угасать на глазах. И первое, что я сделала, я обратилась к партнерам фонда Тимченко, к крупным организациям, которые работают в регионах, для того, чтобы узнать, какая ситуация. И одним из таких партнеров был Альянс «Серебряный возраст». Это сеть организаций, которая занимается тем, что как раз взаимодействует с пожилыми, делает разные акции в 15 регионах России. И я, когда поняла, что все находятся в какой-то такой тоже непонятной ситуации, в регионах тогда еще было вообще непонятно, что это в Москве был карантин про регионы еще не понимали, что это такое, и до них еще не докатилась эта волна, они вообще думали, что это придумки столицы, я обратилась к ним с предложением объединить усилия для того, чтобы наладить как раз такой некий механизм помощи. И надо сказать, что довольно быстро мы предложили всем организациям, которые готовы были помогать пожилым, вступить в коалицию, и за первую неделю в нее вступило 135 организаций, да, по всей России, 56 регионов. Сейчас на данный момент 235 организаций в коалиции, но основная задача была не просто призвать эти организации вступить, а еще и помочь им сориентироваться в ситуации и вместе решить, как же помогать, потому что, как мы понимаем, взаимодействие было запрещено, оно могло быть опасно не только для пожилого человека, но и для самих волонтеров, сотрудников некоммерческих организаций, и это все нужно было учитывать. И основная проблема, на которую мы сделали фокус, это выявление, потому что мы понимаем, что люди, которые стоят на учете в соцслужбах, о которых знают соседи, так или иначе с ними есть контакт и им помогут. Но есть, вот как я уже сказала до этого, большое количество людей, о которых не знает никто. И их нужно было срочно найти для того, чтобы оказать им помощь. И на это мы сделали действительно уделили этому очень большое внимание, мы стали обучать организации, как находить этих пожилых, и мы сразу поняли, что без членов местного сообщества мы не справимся, потому что только люди, которые проживают в домах, примерно понимая, кто у них соседи или которые могут обойти дом и узнать или обратиться к старшим по подъезду, и мы стали вовлекать людей. Что мы стали делать? Мы стали печатать листовки, да, для того, чтобы они развешивали их в подъездах, чтобы пожилой человек мог позвонить, обратиться за помощью, сказать, что он вообще есть, и ему нужна эта помощь. Мы стали обучать обычных людей, соседские сообщества, как нужно оказывать помощь, что ни в коем случае нельзя заходить в квартиру, да, что оставлять продукты только у двери. Мы очень старались также, чтобы пожилые люди не испытывали это невероятное чувство страха, потому что понятно, что ситуация нагнеталась, и мы знаем, что пожилое население очень много смотрит телевизор, да, то есть это как раз являются адептами телевизионных программ, и, конечно, в СМИ вот эта вот тема невероятно муссировалась, и это было все очень действительно, страшно не только для пожилого человека, для любого человека. Мы понимали, что нужно также что-то делать с психологическим состоянием пожилых людей. Внутри регионов было организовано порядка 12 горячих линий, куда человек мог позвонить не только сказать, что ему нужны продукты, но еще и были психологи, которые разговаривали с ними и вообще объясняли ситуацию, потому что если человек одинок, то он вообще не понимает, что происходит, или, например, он оказался отрезан от своих родственников, которые живут в другом городе, в другой стране, они не могут приехать. И эта услуга пользовалась невероятной популярностью, но нам нужно было рассказать о ней, и вот мы всячески старались находить этих людей. Помимо соседей мы обращались в управляющие компании, общались с медсестрами, то есть все, кто мог нам рассказать о том, что в том или ином районе проживает человек, который одинок, мы старались это все делать, и мы, правда, понимали, что эта ситуация показывает, что есть огромное количество людей, которые никогда не попросят о помощи, и это наша задача их найти. И я хочу сказать, что за время пандемии, за время работы коалиции порядка 5000 человек мы обнаружили таким образом, да, поставили их на учет, дошли до них, и теперь к ним ходят волонтеры уже даже сейчас, потому что понятно, что человек, который зависит от внешней помощи, еще и одинок, да, с окончанием пандемии его потребность в общении, в помощи, она никуда не делась. Да, и в общем мы таким образом, да, наверное, будем дальше искать людей, которые нуждаются в помощи.
Это очень такой обширный проект. Я действительно удивлена, сколько людей было задействовано в том, чтобы так быстро построить всю эту цепочку реакции на такое событие, как пандемия. Поделитесь, пожалуйста, своим опытом, как вообще получилось так все организации очень быстро совместить, чтобы все стали заодно вместе работать. Может быть, какие-то конкретные примеры у вас есть? Как вообще получилось так быстро все провернуть?
Действительно, мне кажется, что в обычное время процесс объединения, он всегда очень непрост, и переговоров занимает огромное количество времени. Почему? Потому что любая организация держится за свои ресурсы и боится их потерять. Но в данном случае стало понятно, что нет ни одной организации, я думаю, не то что в России, но в мире, которая смогла бы покрыть все нужды людей, которые пострадали не только от ковида, но и вообще от закрытия границ, от ковида. И без того, чтобы объединить ресурсы, стало понятно, что невозможно ничем помочь, потому что, например, есть организации, которые очень давно занимаются пожилыми, и они очень хорошо и профессионально умеют ухаживать. Да? Но они, например, обычно там ухаживали за, там, не знаю, 100-150 людьми. А есть организации, которые всегда занимались, например, семьями или детьми, у них огромный волонтерский пул, но они никогда не занимались пожилыми. И стало понятно, что одни без других не справятся. Именно на этом мы стали напирать для того, чтобы организации объединялись, потому что у каждой организации есть свои сильные стороны. И, например, в регионе мы стали искать таких якорных партнеров, которые под собой бы объединяли еще организации, такую зонтичную систему, потому что понятно, что кто-то все равно должен курировать деятельность, должен каскадировать информацию, методические материалы, которые мы распространяли. И я думаю, что пандемия показала, что в сотрудничестве есть гораздо больше плюсов, и что это дает невероятный эффект, и я надеюсь, что это ощущение, да, и это вот такая политика взаимодействия и коммуникации останется дальше. И тут, знаете, сыграла еще роль, что помимо того, что невероятное количество кейсов, когда волонтеры там приезжали и доставляли продукты, у нас, например, есть очень необычный кейс в Оренбургской области, когда волонтеры сели на велосипеды и поехали по сельской местности для того, чтобы, во-первых, найти людей, которым нужна помощь, и, во-вторых, привозить им продукты, доставлять, спрашивать, как у них дела, ничего ли им не нужно. Они приезжали в эти деревни, они кололи дрова, привозили воду, и это было, конечно, невероятно. Но помимо этого есть часть людей пожилых, которые еще и прекрасно обращаются с интернет-ресурсами, и для них мы делали невероятное количество образовательных курсов и по тому, как заниматься дома для того, чтобы сохранить физическое здоровье. Да? И мы делали очень много групп, когда люди могли общаться, обсуждать фильмы. И в том числе были и занятия по профилактике когнитивных нарушений и людей, у которых уже есть проблемы, да, начальная стадия деменции. Но, например, в Рязани у нас есть кейс, когда есть большое количество людей, которые до этого занимались психологами и с нейропсихологами, но у них не было возможности выходить в интернет, и там им организовали такую телефонные занятия, то есть они все подключались одномоментно на одну в общем, да, в один разговор, и с ними проводили занятия по телефону. Стало понятно, что действительно не все могут обращаться с интернетом и скайпом, но кто мог, для них было невероятное количество контента создано для того, чтобы они чувствовали себя одинокими. И внутри регионов было много количества проектов, когда волонтеры общались с пожилыми и по телефону, и вот так вот визуально, как мы сейчас с вами, да, и визуально, и виртуально, для того, чтобы друг друга. Но кейсов, как люди начали помогать, это невероятное количество, и даже не только НКО. Например, в Норильске, когда у нас везде были такие общие чаты, и мы старались вовлечь людей, и призыв о том, что нужны волонтеры, попал в клуб бизнесменов. И так случилось, что в Норильске эти люди невероятно быстро откликнулись, потому что как раз в это время был такой колд, да, и люди не делали очень много по своей обычной работе. И так получилось, что все смеялись, что это был такой отряд на ленд-крузерах, который ездил по Норильску. Территории, да, огромные, очень тяжело добраться, они ездили к пожилым людям и доставляли им продукты, через дверь разговаривали с ними, и после этого они написали, что это невероятное ощущение, они даже не знали, что вот есть такие люди, которым так не нужны, и они продолжают это делать даже сейчас. Вот. Очень разные люди очень по-разному откликались на ситуацию. Один из интересных способов выявления людей был, наверное, еще вот один кейс расскажу просто. Мы с вами, естественно, храним все наши контакты в облаке, да, там у кого Apple, Android, но это всегда, да, синхронизация. Конечно, пожилые люди хранят все в записных книжках, это до сих пор есть, эти записные книжки, которые выцвели, уже половина цифр не видны, и волонтеры приходили к пожилым людям, ну, то есть они были в костюмах, то есть все было в защитных, да, то есть для того, чтобы никакого риска, и вместе с ними смотрели эти книжки и обзванивали людей, спрашивали, кто эти люди, и таким образом также находили людей, которым нужна помощь. Вот, то есть способы использовались все возможные, чтобы обнаружить тех, кто нуждается.
Удивительно, удивительно. Столько замечательных историй, и действительно люди просто схватились в такой трудный момент и начали помогать. Ну, вот, наверное, хочу заметить, что на самом деле помогать — это очень приятно, и многие, мне кажется, даже не всегда осознают, как человек начинает себя чувствовать после того, как у него появилась возможность кому-то помочь. И вот во всей этой ситуации, Кира, какие, может, самые важные такие уроки, какие-то истины из всего этого опыта, ну, каждый человек может для себя, ну, как бы, взять из этой ситуации?
Я думаю, что первый вывод — это, что никогда не надо отчаиваться, да, каждый период нам дан для того, чтобы мы чему-то научились, приобрели новый опыт, осмыслили какой-то период своей жизни и сделали правильные выводы, чтобы пойти дальше. Второе, что даже если это абсолютный карантин, никуда нельзя ходить, есть все равно люди, которым ты можешь помочь, да, эти люди могут находиться на расстоянии вытянутой руки в твоем подъезде, ты всегда можешь выйти за хлебом и принести пожилому соседу хлеб и оставить его около двери, ты можешь просто позвонить и поговорить с человеком, а пожилому человеку это невероятно важно, и у нас были кейсы, да, когда сами пожилые люди, которые не могли выходить по причине того, что это было очень опасно, были такими координаторами, они обзванивали людей, спрашивали, как у них дела. И я думаю, что вот эта вот психологическая поддержка, всегда человеческая, не менее важна иногда, чем действительно принести продукты. И я думаю, что если человек действительно хочет помочь, ему не нужны никакие большие организации, невероятные деньги, потому что чаще всего самая такая помощь, которая невероятно важна и влияет на жизнь человека, она делается всего лишь там 1-2 движениями. Просто надо найти в себе смелость предложить эту помощь, а другому надо найти в себе смелость согласиться. К сожалению, в русской культуре не очень принято просить о помощи, но я думаю, что это должно нам, вот эта вся ситуация должна нас научить, что нет ничего постыдного говорить, что мне нужна помощь, предлагать ее. Это не унизит ни в коем случае человека, это скорее покажет ему, что тебе не все равно. И я думаю, что вот думать о том, что, возможно, когда-то тебе понадобится такая помощь или твоим близким, и окажется рядом на личной площадке или в подъезде своего дома человек, которому будет не все равно, он поможет, придет, позвонит, спросит, я думаю, это должно нас мотивировать продолжать деятельность и идти вперед.
Да, согласна с вами. И напоследок хочу задать вам такой вопрос. Большинство, скорее всего, нашей аудитории, которая нас сейчас слушает, это молодые ребята, может быть, им 15-18 лет. И вот, будучи в таком молодом возрасте, что подросток, да, будучи еще в школе, либо там на начальных курсах университета, может сделать, чтобы стать причастным вот к этим организациям, либо в целом побольше узнать о том, как они могут помочь пожилому населению России и других стран?
Если вы находитесь в России, то вы можете зайти на сайт «Забота рядом», там есть список организаций, вы можете позвонить туда, и неважно, что вам 15 лет, 16 или 17, то есть до совершеннолетия, да, вы можете сказать, что вы хотели стать волонтером, вас с удовольствием примут, и, в принципе, да, навестить пожилого человека, позвонить лишний раз, неважно, сколько тебе лет, да, подросток может это сделать не хуже, а то и лучше, чем взрослый человек, и я думаю, что, в принципе, узнать, кто живет в твоем подъезде или в соседних домах, поспрашивать и понять, кому нужна помощь, и предложить им эту помощь, просто даже от себя, не будучи организованными в какие-то институции, да, это очень легко. Потом всегда можно на базе школы устроить такую как бы волонтерский небольшой инициативную группу волонтерскую, да, которая могла бы вот таким образом ходить, или, например, могли бы устраивать какие-то встречи даже онлайн, или даже пригласить на школьную кухню и приготовить все вместе что-то. Это тоже уже очень классная активность. Или приготовить все вместе и отнести тем людям, которые, к сожалению, не могут сами прийти. Я думаю, что все это вполне возможно. В интернете есть невероятное количество кейсов, да, которые сейчас происходили во время пандемии, что делали соседи для своих пожилых соседей. И потом, мне кажется, что сейчас поколение, у которого безграничная фантазия, поэтому все возможно вообще.
Да, спасибо большое, Кира, вам за эту беседу. Время у нас, к сожалению, подходит к концу. Я думаю, на самом деле можно много чего еще обсудить. Но спасибо большое за такую мотивацию и за действительно добрую историю о вашей организации, и на то, на что действительно способны люди, когда они встречаются вместе, начинают действовать и идти к одной цели.
Даша, спасибо вам за такие умные вопросы. Надеюсь, что наша беседа действительно вдохновит кого-то, или, по крайней мере, расскажет, как вообще можно помогать. Кому интересно, в YouTube есть ролик, который называется «Солидарность – это норма». Это ролик, который был снят по итогам работы всех волонтеров внутри коалиции. Да, их было больше 5000 и более 100 000 людей, которым мы помогли. Если вам захочется поглубже погрузиться, посмотрите 3 минуты, и вы увидите лица этих пожилых людей, которым оказали помощь. Поэтому, если хочется, это невероятные эмоции.
Здорово, я обязательно посмотрю и всем советую. Спасибо еще раз за ваше время. Всего доброго.
Всего доброго, до свидания.
Hello, we are back again, and we are going to be talking specifically about the school's COVID-19 initiatives and what they've been doing, kind of their efforts in terms of logistics. I'm sure it was a logistical nightmare to bring us all back here. Coming from all these different places. We're going to be talking about appreciation and especially teacher and ground staff appreciation. And yeah, so I'm going to start a little bit about the logistics. So being a part of the student council, I've gotten to be a little bit more kind of involved in knowing about what the logistical ways were while bringing us back. And I would say that it was not easy, and it was very difficult, especially for teachers who had to pick up extra shifts or who also had to do kind of this blended learning program. Do you want to talk about a teacher specifically? Or?
Yeah, I really want to give a shout out to my philosophy teacher, Liam, who's been doing a really great job with the COVID blending. He is our head of humanities there, so if that says anything about how UWC has been handling in-person and online classes, I think that's a really good place to start. He's been doing a really great job, and the most of our teachers have been as well, of making sure that students aren't able to get to campus yet or have been having some sort of struggle for whatever reason being in quarantine are still able to attend online classes and get the same level of education. So I want to give a shout out that way. I know that other teachers have been making the same efforts, and so really appreciative of all the ways that teachers have been kind of stepping up to the plate and making sure that COVID isn't a hindrance to our education and continuing it.
Exactly. And of course we still have ground staff, whether it's people working in engineering or the lunch people or the lunch, dinner, and breakfast people that come in every single day. It doesn't matter who they are and who they are in terms of what their background is or whatever. They've always been able to consistently come in to school and to help us. They've been serving us every single day, and we have been recognizing them. There have been initiatives from the teachers or for the teachers and for the ground staff from the students. More specifically, we are trying to recognize who they are as individuals. We're trying to recognize what work they do at school, and in general kind of looking at what efforts they're putting in, given the fact that we're all kind of living through this, and they are primarily what is structuring us and what is grounding kind of our entire school. They're providing us with heating, for example, or all of these different things, and we really wanted to appreciate it, especially now, because they are taking a risk coming into school, knowing that there are people from multiple different countries, and yeah, so we're trying to appreciate them both in themselves as individuals, both in their and also in
Իմ պատուհանից էլ շատ մոտ է այս անկախության օրվա այս նվագոցներով, ուսամ չի խանգարում ձենը։ Ագա պատուհանը, նինջան։
Election season this past
Օծկին։
mainly because elections couldn't happen in person, and so our core all of them stepped up and made sure that we continue to have quality student council meetings, and that everything was still being done in that regards, especially in relation to the concerns that students had about COVID-19. And so we want to give them a shout out, as well as our student council, not student council, yes, as our social committee, who has been organizing movie nights and different trivia events for all of us in red zone or in quarantine to make sure that that sense of community is still there, even though we're not able to be together in person in some cases still, that we're still having that sense of community and making sure that we're all together and connected. So want to give a shout out to them, as well as John Michaela, who has been great at helping everyone who's been having stresses, whether from home or from emotional responses caused by COVID-19 or anything related to that, in relation to giving that emotional support, as well as our peer listeners who have also stepped up and made sure that we're all being supported and cared for. So we wanted to give a shout out to all of them as well.
Yeah, and we're having different events. For example, social committee did movie nights, but there are also different students who are doing things such as UWC Day. There have been a great effort from both staff and students to organize beautiful performances and really touching, I would say, especially theater performances, music and dance and art, visual arts as well. And the showcasing of all of these different things have been amazing, both for regaining the UWC spirit and things such as that. So we now want to move to a video for Ayo, and we hope you enjoy that. Bye.
That's all for us.
Ayo means yes in Armenian. We were established by Fund for Armenian Relief in 2013. It's a youth initiative which aims to attract and encourage young people from Armenia and abroad to have their own investment in the development of the country. We work in different fields, starting from education, arts, women's rights, children's rights, economic development, and we try to implement small-scale projects which have a very big impact in Armenia.
Շատ փոքր ծրագրերից եւ այսօր կարող ենք հպարտությամբ նշել, որ բավականին մեծ ծրագրեր ենք անում.
I was one of the first people to join the team, and from the first day on we developed the whole concept, the first project, and when we first started, the idea was very new to Armenia, and the fundraising in Armenia through young people was something that nobody has ever done in the scale that we imagined.
I'm the digital marketing specialist at Ayo, but you know, for small teams like Ayo, we are a team of 5-6 people. You need to do more, and it's a teamwork, and we support each other during everything and during all operations.
We go to different regions of Armenia. We talk to many people from different communities, and we see what challenges they have and what we could do with our small team to fix those problems. And the great thing about our projects are that maybe they're not big in scale in terms of the financing that we need, but in terms of the impact, we make huge impact. It's a great feeling to see that how you could change the life of a whole community with your project.
My volunteering position at Ayo sort of fell into my lap. I learned about it from Funds for Armenian Relief, FAR. I visited them one day and was so impressed by what they do, their devotion to the cause, and their involvement in all aspects of Armenian life and the future of Armenia.
It sounded like a great way to not only
potentially, volunteer and have an impact, but also to learn a ton.
Transparency and accountability is very important to us. After the project is being implemented, we have 3 types of reports. We do video report, we do photo report, and we also put financial report on our website. There are different ways you can contribute to our work. You can make the online donations to our website. You can become our volunteer. You can become our ambassador and do your own fundraising in your community.
One of our missions is to involve more young people in Armenia and out of Armenia. And you know that nowadays social media is the best tool to be connected to all of them.
We are trying to encourage diaspora and young people to get involved and to take an interest in the future of Armenia.
Ոչ միայն սփյուռքի ներուժն ենք օգտագործել, այլ նաև օգտագործել ենք մեր երկրի, մեր երիտասարդության ներուժը։
One of the most important things about IO is that 100% of all donations go to project. There are no commission fees, no admin fees.
I remember the very first project that we did. There is an inclusive school in Yerevan, and we had to purchase a braille printer for them so that they could actually print their own educational materials. As a result, we had so much love and support from our colleagues in Armenia and our supporters outside Armenia that we ended up purchasing 2 braille printers. It's like a paradigm now that we start a project with one goal and the final result is almost all the time twice more.
It was the most fulfilling and also enriching experience of my college career, and it allowed me to actually get involved in Armenia and learn about myself, learn about a culture that's dear to me and a part of my own.
I separate my life in 2 sections, before IO and after joining IO. Because the moment I joined IO, I realized that I work not for someone, I work for something, and that something is a cause, and that cause is to develop Armenia and make Armenia a better country.
Not only have I met wonderful people across Armenia, but I've gotten to know the team who is so devoted to the cause, and they are the people who make the difference.
Երևի կյանքիս ամենամեծ ու սիրուն բաներից է այս ամեն ինչի մասը դառնալ, հնարավորություն ունենալ ինչ-որ մի բան անել, գործողությամբ ապացուցել, որ ես կարող եմ իմ երկրի ներսում ինչ-որ մի բան անել ու ինչ-որ մի բան փոխել, ինչը նաև փորձել ենք IO-ի հետ միասին իրականացնել Հայաստանում.
You have to decide, we all have to decide at some point in our lives, I think, the kind of person that we want to be, the kind of Armenian that we want to be, American Armenian that we want to be, right? And there's a fun side to that, and there's also a side to that, right? Where we can go out, we can enjoy the restaurants, we can enjoy the bars, but also a side where we have the potential to use our talents and our skills, and we can grow our talents and grow our skills by getting involved in Armenia, right?
Stay in touch with us and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Join us and say IO to creating a better Armenia for all of us.
Happy Armenian Independence Day, everyone. Thank you for joining our virtual event today. I am Ani, a UWC Dilijan alumni, first generation graduate, and I currently work at the National Democratic Institute in Armenia as a senior program assistant in the Women's Empowerment team. So I'm naturally very, very excited to be joined by the inspiring program director of IO, Laura Gevorkian, who has been the program director since 2017. Laura has been working in the sphere of human rights for over 10 years prior to joining IO. And just shortly about IO, IO is a fundraising platform of Fund for Armenia Relief, which emphasizes the power and agency of the Armenian people and their ability to make positive changes in their society by providing a vehicle to raise money for local development projects. IO was designed to engage and empower young people who wish to take change into their own hands and give agency to those who seek to contribute. Now, without any further ado, I would like to give the virtual platform to Laura for any words and remarks if she has, and then we can proceed to our questions.
Thank you, Ani, for a very nice introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to join you in this webinar. It's a pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. And I will be talking about the IO fundraising platform for the next 20 minutes. So just to add a couple of words to what Ani already said. So IO was established 7 years ago. It's a local fundraising platform. We do projects in Armenia and Artsakh. And when we just, like the mission is, as Ani already said, we do want to unite everyone in Armenia and abroad around local issues that we have here. And one of the most important things that we always say is that the projects that we choose are coming from grassroots. So we at our team make the needs assessment, and we together with all other young people in the country decide basically what is the need and what project is important to implement. And for the past 7 years, we implemented over 35 projects, fundraising campaigns. We raised around $350,000 from Armenia and US mainly. And it's a big success because when we were just starting the platform, everyone was saying, oh, it's very difficult to do a crowdfunding in Armenia. You will not be successful in fundraising locally because people do not believe, they don't want to crowdfund, like make donations. And we proved them wrong because so far, like 16% of all our donations are coming from Armenia. And it's a huge success for us because we, apart from the great projects that we were doing and are doing, we also have as a mission to teach people the culture of crowdfunding. We want to teach them how important it is to have your small contribution in the development of the country. And so, yeah, so we love our projects and we love our donors, and yeah, we love our work.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing your experience, sharing a very interesting information about IO. And as you have said, you work on developing this culture among the Armenian youth by which they begin donating to local causes and start to make a difference in their communities. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience in that sphere? Because as you've said, it's an initiative, it's something new. And when you stepped into it, you thought that you're going to have some challenges because the idea of crowdfunding was novel in the Armenian sphere. So maybe tell us a little bit about your challenges, how you overcame, your experience overall.
Yeah, so yeah, so basically 7 years ago, it was my crowdfunding culture was very new. And we just started with, like, one of the most important things is that you choose a project that you really believe in and you really want to come true. That's, I think, one of the very first things. The second important thing is that you are always honest and also very transparent with all your donors, because you know, like, why people wouldn't give? Because they don't believe that their money would go to a correct cause, right? That the money will be spent correctly. So we always do 3 kinds of reports on our website. We put financial reports, video and photo reports, so that people always see the results of their work. The third very important component is that we always respect our donors. So we never treat them as cash machines, as we love saying, because every donation, every cent is very important to us. So we always are very thankful to them, and we always appreciate those who give $1 and those who give $5,000. You know, it's for us all are equal, and we love and value them all. So as a challenge, of course, like the biggest challenge was that people believe that the money that will be giving will be spent correctly. Here, I think, thanks to our hard work and transparency, we could show that they can trust us, and the money will be spent on the projects. And by the way, I forgot to mention in the beginning that what IO is different from all other fundraising platforms is that 100% of all our donations go to projects. So we never take any charges, anything for our admin costs. So also that's also an important fact, that people do believe that like basically every cent will be spent on projects.
Great. I mean, I agree completely. It is so important to create this atmosphere of trust, because especially I think in the Armenian culture, it plays one of the first roles, because people make money and of course they want to do a contribution, but in so many cases they have had negative experience of their money going nowhere. So it is very important that you're transparent in that sense, and you successfully create this culture of trust. Which of course helps your cause as well. And you sound very passionate about the work you do at IO, and take it very personally, as I can feel. And what was one of the most valuable lessons that you've learned during those years working at IO?
Yeah, the most important thing is always tell the truth, never fake anything. So we always tell the true story of our beneficiaries. We always use the real photos, and we always try to show the real picture. So one of the most important lessons. It's not even our lesson, but it's a lesson that we learned from other experiences, that you always need to tell the true story. Never fake anything. Always be as it is.
Yeah, that is very true. What do you think? So you said that IO has been there for 7 years now, correct? And you've been working on not only implementing your projects, but also you've introduced this idea of crowdfunding. And how do you think this culture of donation is going to develop in the future 5 to 7 years in Armenia?
I think that people, they already started believing in the importance of having their own contribution in different projects. So I think the future is that at some point, like many important projects will be crowdfunded, and people will have the ownership over it. Let's say, I don't know, like one of the recent projects that we did, the renovation of libraries in 17 communities in Armenia, and people were very passionate about donating for the cause, and especially people in the communities, they realized that it's important that they also have their own contributions. So with the donors from with our donors, we bought materials, and people who live in the community, they had in-kind contribution by doing the all renovation free of charge, which is a great example of how people value. They have ownership over, over their community. They have a possibility to do something for their community, and if they do, they have complete ownership over it. So in the future, I do hope that it will develop, it will increase. People would feel more connected to their villages, to their cities, and they would be willing to do more of their own work in order to see it, flourish and develop.
Yeah, I mean, I think this the importance of responsibility also plays a big role. So there's some people, I mean, it's so great that you have the opportunity of not only material support, but also people can go and physically help. And when you do something good for your community, you kind of also feel responsible for the well-being of your community because you've had your own contribution. And I think this is an amazing culture of, you know, accountability, sharing, and responsibility. Exactly. And, you know, the feeling of community itself is strengthening. So it's really great, the work that you're doing.
Thank you. I can tell you one example if you.
Yeah, please.
If you, for example, we have a Christmas project, which is called Chocolate Bank. That's basically the only project that is not a development project, but it's just a fun project that we do for kids. We are collecting chocolates during a month from people. I mean, you don't give money, you just give chocolate. And then we distribute this chocolate before the new year to all the kids. So when we started, we collected around 200 kilos of chocolate. And then with every year, the number was just increasing and increasing and increasing. And last year we collected 1,300 kilos of chocolate, which, that's, but the funny part is that people from other communities, because every year we visit a region. So that's the internal rule, and every year the region that we already visited, they also take part in donating chocolate. So they, it's a very nice thing because they got something and now they want to give something in return, and that's where I see the future of the crowdfunding and people changing people's mind basically.
I mean, it's a very cool and fun initiative. I love that. I would love to contribute as well, and I think many people watching us are super excited. I mean, I'm a big chocolate lover, but I would also love to give back some chocolate as well. It's a fun way, of engaging the community, and then this time you give chocolate and then you learn about the cause, and next time you make a different contribution. So it's exponential, it grows. So it's a very fun thing that you have. And so Laura, you raised over $100,000 during the COVID lockdown to provide food and care for the others. Could you tell to support vulnerable communities in rural Armenia, and what are some of your observations about the people who have been receiving help and care during this difficult and challenging times? What is the response?
It was one of our most successful projects, but also one of the most difficult one. We launched the project at the end of the March, basically almost in a week after the government of Armenia announced the lockdown. So we were just very fast. We were one of the first organizations that started the fundraising. So we just were there at the right moment, in the right place. We already raised 120 already during this month, and we helped over 2,700 families, and with providing food and hygiene supplies, and we already distributed over 38,000 PPEs in 2 hospitals. The people that we have helped, I could maybe divide into groups. The first group were those who were already in very vulnerable situation before COVID, and then when COVID happened, the situation of their situation got even worse because they lost the job that they could finally have, and were basically cut from the minimum financial resources that they had. And the second group are people who had normal job. They were working mainly in the service sector, and then COVID happened, and then boom, they were left without any income for 5-6 months. And those are people who are renting apartments, and they were just unable to pay even their apartment rent for 6 months. And those are mainly Syrian Armenian families that we also could reach out. I mean, the support that we were giving was for a month, and for them it was very important because at least they had some food to survive for a month. Like the families that we visited were really in very bad situation. Almost all of them had minor kids, more than 3 kids. And when we were receiving the requests from our partner organizations, they were just saying, I mean, like kids are starving, basically. It's really bad. And with the support that we gave, we could at least make sure that they could at least have some food for the kids and for the family for a month. And the important thing, which we tried to make sure in the beginning, that we help those families who were left out from the main list of the Ministry of Social Affairs, because everything we did was in coordination with the ministry,
Right.
just to avoid overlap and to avoid, misuse of resources. So we were in touch with them from the very beginning, and we said, we are here with the money that we have. Just tell us how we can help. Yeah, and then we started with helping the staff members of the school canteens. Dependent on these monthly salaries, and then with single moms, we helped staff members of the soup kitchen, like kindergartens. All those people who were not receiving any help from the Ministry of Social Affairs. I'm very proud of this project, and I'm very thankful to all our 500 donors. Because I mean, that was a global problem, and with all our fundraising, like during all our fundraising campaign, we're always saying, we know it's a global problem. We know everyone is now having difficult times, and we're not just asking all the time money for Armenia. We're just saying, hey, we are here with our problems in the country. Help us if you can.
Right.
No pressure, nothing. Just if you can, just help the people that our people here. And it was amazing. People got mobilized. People from all different parts of the world donated for the cause. I don't know, starting from Australia, we had donors even from non-Armenians, Australians, Germans, French people, people all over the world. They would just, they were just ready to share, maybe the few money that they had, I mean, because it.
And I mean, you really should be proud because, everyone was going through a difficult time all over the world. I mean, it's one of those crises in a very long time that everyone is in a bad situation. And honestly, well done to you, and an amazing job on being able to attract outside support as well.
Yeah.
Very
And
well done.
how much we got so many donations, which people would just donate $1. Or they would just donate $5. Imagine, for us, it's invaluable, because what it means that the person didn't have a lot of money. He just had some small amount, and he donated $1 from the small amount that he had for the cause. Yeah, we especially love all our donors who are donating small amounts, because that means that that person really believed in the cause and is ready to share the small, even the small amount that he has with Armenian for the cause.
I mean, it's extremely inspiring, honestly. I love to hear the stories. It was so exciting to hear about some of your projects. And if maybe for a closing question, I could ask you about one project that you feel most passionate about because it has made such a difference and because it has brought the community that you have worked with together. If you could briefly share one of those projects, if you recall.
Yeah, well, I think I would love to talk about the first IO project that we did, the Protective Wall project. I think it picked, it's the most vivid example of how people like in the community got mobilized. So it's 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, in a bordering village in Tavush, we got a call from a kindergarten, the principal of a kindergarten, saying that, like we got shoots, like kids cannot go to kindergarten and the school because we got gunshots and it's very unsafe for them. So IO decided, okay, what if we just build a protective wall so that the kids feel safe and they can go to school. We raised, that was the first project, imagine like 7 years ago, $17,000. And how the team was doing the fundraising, they were selling, I have goosebumps. Yeah. They were selling stones in the streets, and each like small stone it would cost like 100 gram. And they collected like more than 50% of the 16,000 just selling these small stones in the streets, like in the metro stations, in the street. And whenever they would hear that, oh, this is for a protective wall in Tavush, they would just like give their last, even we had cases that like there were even students that had very like, couple of 100 grams and they would just give, donate for the cost because everyone just, they knew it's a problem and they realized how important it is and they were ready to share the last money just to have kids being safe. Yeah, that's one of our more inspiring projects.
I have to say it has been so interesting to get to know about the diversity of your projects, the diversity that IO covers, all very, very different from each other, but all of them extremely exciting and extremely inspiring. And I mean, thank you very much for joining and for sharing your personal journey, for sharing the journey that IO has been going through. I mean, I'm sure some people will be hearing about it for the first time, but I think you have made a strong connection with our audience because I personally loved every bit of it. And thanks again for finding the time to tell your stories, to share your journey. And I want to ask everyone to stay tuned because our next speaker is Shavik Chaparyan, who will be talking about the initiative Together for Lebanon. And thanks again, Laura.
Thank you.
It was
Thank
lovely
you so
talking
much.
to you. And thanks
Thank
everyone.
you, me too. Thanks. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bonjour, I'm Stephanie from Canada. Leho, I'm Kylie, I'm from Hong Kong, and I'm from Canada. We hope you're enjoying this virtual UWC day so far, and we're so grateful to be able to celebrate with you and share a bit more about our life here at UWC Dilijan.
Alright, so as a United World College, I'm sure you guys know that we're a very international community, and some of the great things that come with being an international community is we really get to experience the cultures of countries from all over the world. We have the privilege of tasting delicious food from all over the world, but I think one of the biggest things is hearing the hearts and understanding the hearts of the people from the different countries around the world. And although we're not experts by any means with any of the events that we're going to be mentioning today, we really want to share about with you on behalf of our community.
So as you may know, last year, due to the pandemic, our year was cut short and we had to go home in March, but that didn't disconnect us from our community. So during our time back home, a lot of events happened in our friends' countries and around the rest of the world, and that's what we want to share with you today.
Right, so you guys know 2020 has been kind of a wild year. A lot has happened, and it's probably one of the most eventful ones that I've experienced in my life, and I think for sure will go down in history. Our favorite disease, COVID-19, made its dramatic entrance back in December 2019, but has yet to make its exit in 2020.
Yeah, and while economies and health systems were overwhelmed by the pandemic, some countries unfortunately also had to deal with other difficulties.
So going back to the beginning of the year, For example, Australia experienced some of the worst bushfires in history. These bushfires were large and they displaced thousands of people. They destroyed millions of acres of land, and unfortunately they also killed billions of animals.
It was really devastating, but it was also encouraging to see how the global community came together in response to these events. The global community raised over $500 million in relief funds, and also a lot of international volunteers flew in to help put out the fires. And we also saw a lot of other things happen this year. We witnessed the Black Lives Matter movement, which sparked protests after the death of George Floyd. The Ukrainian international flight that got shot down in Iran that killed over 180 people. There was also the Azerbaijan and Armenia conflict that happened right here in Armenia. And the Lebanese situation that we're going to talk a bit more about later.
Right, and some of the other things that happened in 2020 was just a continuation of, for example, the tensions between China and Hong Kong with the extradition law. Indonesia was flooded. Oh my gosh, the worst things was Meghan Markle and Prince Harry stepped down from royalty and the Olympics got rescheduled. But all jokes aside, a lot of things did happen in 2020, and like Steph said, especially in Lebanon. So one of the major events that happened, I think, really shook the world figuratively, but literally as well, were the explosions that happened in Beirut of Lebanon. So on August 4th, a massive explosion at a warehouse in the port sent a shockwave through east and downtown of Beirut, where over 190 people were killed and more than 6,000 people were injured in the explosion.
The explosion also caused a lot of damage in the surrounding neighborhoods and nearby buildings. And authorities say that they think it was caused by the ignition of a cache of ammonium nitrate, which is an explosive chemical. And so the videos of the explosion went viral on the internet, and I remember myself watching them. Every time we watch them, it's very devastating, and you can see how strong the explosion was.
Yeah, I don't think you were the only one that was shocked by the videos. Like, it was pretty crazy. And like Steph said, I think the videos blew up really fast. And people were shocked, but also angry at how something like this could have happened.
Right, and I think a lot of people, including the Lebanese population, wondered why these chemicals weren't taken care of earlier and why they were left in this warehouse for 6 years. And that fact, along with the politics of Lebanon, sparked a lot of protests among the Lebanese community.
So what we mean by that, I'll give you a little bit of background information right now. So we've been talking through with some of our Lebanese co-years about it, and they have been educating us about it. And so we're going to try our best to also educate you guys about what's been going on. So basically, Lebanon has been going through an economic crisis since October 2019, where there was the Lebanese Revolution, where they started to protest against the current government because they wanted a government reform for a government that was not sectarian. And so in this economic crisis, you can really see the drastic difference between this year and last year. For example, last year, $1 was equivalent to 1,500 Lebanese lira. But now, $1 is equal to 7,900 Lebanese lira, which makes Lebanon's inflation rate the third highest in the world right now, which is that's kind of crazy. And in the past year, they've also experienced 3 different governments because people have just not been satisfied with the new governments that they get. Currently still fighting for a better one. And with COVID-19, the country was placed on lockdown, which really increased, as I mentioned earlier, the inflation rate and really contributed to the economic crisis. And with that, the poverty rate is now also really high. Last year, the poverty rate, I think, was around 33%, but now almost half of the population falls under the poverty line, which is a very significant number. And on top of that, people cannot receive money from the other countries for help. So basically, all their bank accounts have been frozen. They no longer have access to the money that they previously had in the banks. but at the same time, they also can't access anything else that like people are sending over. So if I were to send something over to my friends in Lebanon, like they would not be able to receive it. Like they just can't anymore, which really sucks.
And so the protests of October 2019 were initially triggered by a new policy from the Lebanese government that required WhatsApp users to start paying for when they used the app, which was previously free for them. And that, as I said, triggered the protests, and now the protests are no longer only about this policy, but also about different governmental decisions from Lebanese powers. And so people have not been satisfied with the government's behavior and their decisions for a very long time. And the Lebanese population feels that they've been neglected by the government. And another example of this neglect can be the cause of this explosion. So over 700 tons of ammonium nitrate were left in this warehouse, and that potentially could have maybe, if it was taken care of earlier, it could have prevented maybe this explosion. And the explosion caused very significant damage to the population and to their houses and their homes. Over 300,000 people became homeless overnight because the blast of the explosion was felt for over 20 kilometer radius. And while Lebanon got a lot of international support, the government didn't provide a lot of financial support. So it was the population that went and cleaned out the streets and searched for people. And so yeah, it was all initiated by the Lebanese population and not a lot of support from the government.
Yeah, like our couriers were telling us stories of how they would bring their brooms from their own homes to go down to the streets to clean up the rubble from the damage. And that's not something that I think any teenager would have imagined themselves spending their summer on, which, like, again, is really devastating to hear about. And it was actually a little bit of a funny story with them cleaning the streets. They were telling us about how the French president, Macron, came to visit and to support, and while they were cleaning the streets, one of our Lebanese couriers actually was able to see him amongst the crowds, which I think is cool and funny, but at the same time, like, not something that should have even happened in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah, and so to tell us a bit more about the Beirut explosion, we're going to welcome Shahig Shapahyan. She has a master's degree in science education at the American University of Beirut, and she's a university instructor, an educational researcher, and a consultant working on several development projects with local NGOs in Lebanon. And she recently volunteered as a fieldwork team leader in the Together for Lebanon 2020 initiative. So this initiative is a post-disaster relief fund that aims to help ease the pain of the people who were affected by the devastating explosion in Beirut. And the team provides renovation services, food parcels, cash assistance, and medical supports for families in need.
So right before we hear from her, we're going to watch a 2-minute video on the explosions.
لا
արի կմիաթավ ինչ որ այսինքն այս պահին ոնց որ դժվար հա գաք, որտեվ հիմա շատ մեծ Hi everyone again. Thanks for keeping watching our online event. It's very inspiring, all of our speakers. It's incredible what we hear and learn from them. And now our next speaker is Sharik Chaparyan from Together for Lebanon initiative. And I'm very happy and grateful to you, Sharik, for having time to speak with us.
It's my pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. Okay, so Sharik has a master's degree in science education from the American University of Beirut, and she is a university instructor now, educational researcher, and a consultant working on several development projects with local NGOs in Lebanon. Recently, after the explosion in Beirut, she teamed up with other volunteers and is now also working as a fieldwork team leader in the Together for Lebanon 2020 initiative. Just briefly, Together for Lebanon 2020 is a post-disaster relief fund that aims to help ease the pain of all those affected by the devastating explosion in Beirut. The team provides renovation services, food parcels, medical support, and other necessities to families in need. Sharik, what can I say? I guess what we saw happening in Beirut in August, the explosion didn't only shatter the windows of the buildings of the city, but I'm sure it also shattered the hearts of many and millions of people who saw those videos. I wonder, where were you at this moment, and how would you describe the first hours, perhaps the first night after the disaster for you and your community?
First, I want to thank you for having this discussion together.
Yeah.
And to describing the disaster, it was an ineffable moment to thousands of people. It was such a capricious and emergency incident that happened. No one actually knew about. Fortunately and unfortunately, I don't know what to say, but when the explosion took place, it was later in the in the evening, which means that most of the people were at their homes mostly, or on their way going home.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, we're telling at this stage that before the main explosion, we had a relatively smaller explosion. And when that explosion happened, it allowed people to realize that something unusual is going on. And in between the smaller explosion and the actual one, it felt like a hot wave coming.
Wow.
At first, it seemed to be an earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
Few seconds, it got darker, and kind of like we can say that for a few seconds, no one ever can describe what happened. It was just like opening your eyes and feeling like everything has turned upside down. All the people were trying to leave their houses, trying to go down the stairs on the street. Some were injured, some were barefoot, some were bleeding. All windows were kind of shattered all around, glass and debris, as if like it rained glass and debris down. And the worst part was like after few seconds, it felt like going out of your apartment and finding yourself as if it's the end of. Yes.
Yes, I guess we lost you for a second, but keep going. Yeah, you're back now.
I was telling that the worst part was the fact, like the feeling that when we got out of our apartments, it felt like we are at the state where 30 years of civil war has ended. And it was kind of a war zone. People wounded on the streets and all over. The like screams and shouting, we heard all these at the same time, and like phone lines were not working. We were just hearing the sirens of the ambulance, but no one around. It was kind of as if in few seconds the whole world stopped, and we ended up in a different world that didn't look as beautiful as it was before those few seconds. It's hard to describe. Now that we're getting kind of better emotionally, we can discuss about these more comfortably, as if we're describing one of the most remarkable events of our lives. But at that moment, that was the case, basically.
Yeah. Incredible. Like really, I can't help having goosebumps hearing that. And just how was it for you when you met your family and like, uniting after this?
When I mentioned that the phone lines were not working, so there were like a few minutes or a little bit longer even, we couldn't connect to each other. So it was very hard for us to identify if anyone is safe or not. And when the phone lines started working, we managed to contact each other. And already everyone was trying to contact the other.
Yes.
And there was a moment like we were holding our mobile phones, asking ourselves, did I forget someone? Is there anyone I didn't check on? So that was kind of a very, let's say,
hard moment,
like stressful moment.
Yeah, I can absolutely imagine that. Oh my goodness. And I guess I remember also like a few days after the explosion, when we saw all of that happening, I guess the next thing that I remember after it as a person outsider, like just following the media and everything, I remember there came new images of people already mobilized. Like you could see people, like even like people with special needs, like who can't walk, being out there, like cleaning up, helping give food to others. I guess that was also the second shock as a human, to see that the strength in other humans. So I guess this is how also you can come out with this idea of Together for Lebanon. And I wonder, when it happened, like, was it the first moment, like the first day that you thought about that? How did this come together in your mind, doing it with your friends and community?
Let me give you a brief idea about what was the situation already before the explosion. Before the explosion, Lebanon was already facing financial and like political crisis. And the currency, the Lebanese currency, is devaluated, and we have kind of nearly, if I'm not wrong, more than half of the population was at the edge of poverty already. So from this idea, one of our friends who lives abroad in Russia, his name is Turo, he sent $100 to Lebanon. And when we exchanged the currency to Lebanon, to Lebanese pounds, we had enough money to distribute for few families. And my friend Ara was like asked me, do you know any family in need we can distribute as these money to? As I was working with other campaigns and other campaigns with other projects, I had the list of families already. So we picked out 5 families from those, and we distributed those like small money to those families. And after the explosion, the idea of like Tero helping like from abroad already was developed. And when this disaster happened, also other friends abroad, living abroad, joined the let's say the movement, and we started organizing this group. And the group developed organically based on the needs that we need to move on as a group and to survive. So as we can't have a GoFundMe link from Lebanon, so we asked from friends from France to help us with the account. So they joined the group to manage the account. We started up with cleaning houses or helping people with like finding their safe zones. But when we were cleaning the houses, we thought that we can go a step further by fixing and the doors. So I was planning to get $10,000 in the beginning to fix some doors and windows. When we started doing the assessment of the need assessment of the families, it turned out that it's not about windows, it's not about doors only. So we need medical support, we need to provide food supply, because those people who had, for example, food donations earlier, before the explosion, they lost all the food they had stored already because of the explosion. So we needed to organize everything. And for more organization, for more help, we needed more funds. And we felt like now we need to have a social media team to do the marketing and get more money. And when we started the renovation services, we felt like those that are of a certain responsibility, and there are safety issues in the whole process. So we to join because of the fine to be renovated or not. Where professional architects joined the groups, and that way the group developed, and many volunteers already joined us on the team, and we are around 20 people still.
Wow. Okay, I guess there was this technical internet thing. So how much you've already raised? I'm sure I'm not sure I caught this part, and like what achievements you've had so far with this money. Let's say I understand it can't fix all the things, all the issues now, but like what have you achieved during this time?
As said in the earlier part, that our first target was $10,000 only, and now we have $100,000 because many people, as they saw abroad the way we're working in a professional way and having the financial transparency on the social media already. This trust of the donors with time, and now we are at the state that we got very generous donations from abroad, and now we are at $100,000, and we have spent like half of the amount yet, and we have renovated already around 50 apartments. Other 45 apartments are under construction, under renovation. So we have paid everything, waiting just for the workers come to and fix everything. And we are also continuing. We are also continuing to supply the food parcels. The good thing is that because we are all volunteers and we all have our already full-time jobs, we cannot spend a lot of time on the ground. So at this stage, we are trying to create a synergy with other NGOs and try to put in contact the NGOs or the volunteer groups who have the services to supply, and we are putting these people in contact with the people in need, so that they continue helping each other, and this will be more sustainable movement than just giving one food parcel and leaving, or just fixing the window and leaving, you know. So this is currently, this is what we're working on, to put the grassroots movement groups in contact with our families, so that we can continue supporting, because it's not a matter of a month nor a matter of 2 months. I guess this situation will prolong for minimum 6 months to 1 year, if not more, and continuous support is needed for these families.
Yeah, that's amazing. You guys are really amazing. You know what I want to ask you, because I really wonder like what your answer would be. What is it that you think that we people here could learn from Lebanese people in terms of facing such a challenge, you know, as a society? What is it that you guys learned and we also have to learn from you guys?
You know, you can still feel the heavy and some kind of negative energy in the city. Many people are traumatized, and it's kind of like social, emotional, and psychological like problems that they're going through. But the first thing I realized is that people are showing understanding for those who are having, for example, aberrant behavior or trying, like being aggressive. So some kind of, let's say, patience. We have some patience regarding the aberrant behavior, and despite all the energy you still feel by looking at a collapsing or crushed car, you can see the emotional impact of the explosion in every face. Hope, because hundreds of Lebanese, Syrians, Palestinians even, and many other people of different backgrounds are all working, especially in the beginning, 2-3 weeks, fires flooded all over Lebanon to Beirut. They are working side by side in response to the disaster. So these volunteers are of different ethnicities, religious backgrounds, sexual orientations, nationalities, but they came together to support those who are like lost everything. And as if we forgot our differences and focused on what matters. And it turned out what matters is our shared humanity. I think we hope and others can learn that we create our limitations when it comes to our, let's say, and in life situations, we hope that we have learned how to rise above discrimination, because disasters as such are not selective for certain sects, for certain cultures, nationalities. We were all here. And in the midst of having this political insecurity or instability, the national, let's say, the national organizations couldn't, seemed like to be incompetent of organizing people in the midst of disaster. So here at this point, we learned that we developed this sense of belonging, and because the first people who were helping each other were people of the community or of the country, before the government even. So I hope we learn that before developing this sense of belonging to a certain sect or to a certain culture or a religion, let's say, we develop this sense of belonging to each other as human beings, despite our differences at that moment. We hope that we learned that we should stay united to have the hope of continuing whatever is going on. Because we as Armenian volunteers, we experience this like telling that, you know, Armenians have only Armenians. No, that's not the case, and we proved them wrong. And this was one of the greatest value or the asset of Together for Lebanon, in terms of not having any discrimination. We helped people of all different nationalities, different ethnicities, because it's about humanity and not about the differences we have.
Yes. Sharik, I loved your answer so much. I'm actually going to repeat all of the things you mentioned so that we all remember it well. So it was patience, right? Shared humanity, belonging, and not focusing on differences, but rather on the unity that we all have, the similarities. That's beautiful. You were saying something. Sorry, perhaps I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay. So these were the main ideas, like out of the experience, and because we developed this special bond with the families. So these families, like we served, like we reached out to 180 families. Each family has a unique bond with the volunteers. I can share with you something. I don't know if it will be clear from the video, but this is a handmade. Yes, Rosanna,
yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
So this is given by a teenager, handmade piece, as a gift to the volunteers of Together for Lebanon. And this teenager collected 181,000, which is around $25, something like that. That teenager has collected this money from her relatives just to donate to Together for Lebanon. And everyone knows that they can just contribute even if they have a very small contribution, because every single small contribution we make to the family, it's kind of being multiplied by 100, and it's making a difference to the families that we're visiting. And this bond between the donors, these teenagers that helped us in volunteering, this bond we're creating with the families, this means the word, this means the this is the definition of community to start with.
Absolutely, Sharik. It's very interesting to talk to you, and we could keep on going, but just the final question before we wrap up our session with you. So you talked about the human part of it and stuff, but my final question, and we can just keep it quite short, is to you as an educational researcher and consultant, like from your professional, perhaps academic viewpoint, what is it that, what changes do you think this will bring to Lebanon from social and educational point. Perhaps let's just stick to the educational point of view.
Beside all the disaster we went through, we were already suffering from the coronavirus pandemic, and we didn't have actual classrooms this year. But what I can say that this year, especially for Lebanese students, the streets of Beirut were the most effective classrooms that they experienced, because these maybe they weren't teaching content knowledge for students as it is listed in the curriculum, but definitely these students were capable to move forward in developing that in their civic engagement and human values. And these two, at this developing these two, I guess it's more than enough for 1 year for these students, Lebanese students.
Yeah, I would just say it's lifelong, no? It's not just for 1 year.
It will be part of their character. It was a character building experience for every single one of us as volunteers on the ground. Developing empathy and like all types of human values you can list.
Thank you so much, Sharik, for this conversation. Stay well, and to our viewers, I would just like to say that they keep tuned, because the next speakers of our webinar are Ruben Vartanyan and Veronica Zonabend, our UWC Dilijan founders, and we're also looking forward to talk to them just in a minute. So thank you again, and
thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Welcome back. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how UWC is an example of united forces. So the UWC mission statement is UWC makes education a force to unite people, nations, and culture for peace and a sustainable future. So we're just going to reflect a little bit on that and see how that applies to our everyday life and the international UWC community as well.
Yeah, so I think one of the first things of UWC as a united force is that there are so many Facebook groups that unite people from UWC, whether it's in the same city or in the same country or all over the world. So I'll talk about some of my favorite ones. For example, the UWC travel group. I personally have not used it myself, but I'm in it, and it's just really cool to see how people from all around the world who don't even know each other, they're from different generations, from different schools, but they're still willing to open up their homes to other people from, I don't know, other generations of UWC and whoever else, and give them a place to stay while they travel. And I think that's something that is really cool and special to UWC communities, because I've never really heard of other people doing the same thing.
Yeah, and I think it's crazy how even just knowing that another person has also lived through a UWC experience gives this kind of connection between two people, and it's this instant connection, and it's kind of this shared experience, even though it's not really a shared experience because you didn't go through this 2 years with this other person, but you still feel like you have something in common and something to talk about, and it's always so nice to learn about other UWCs. Yeah, for example, for me, when before I came here, I met with a UWC Dilijan alum from Mexico, and that's exactly what she was talking about. So she's studying at McGill, which is a university in Montreal, and there are a few other UWC students there, and they have these dinners together, they go to these events, and they spend time together, and they were brought together because of this shared experience of UWC. So that's, I think, something that is unique to this movement.
Yeah, because it's a movement that is not just limited to our campus. It really unites people from all times and all places. And another example of this is actually 2 of our co-years over the summer organized this thing. I think it was like UWC speed dates or something, and it was like with people from the different campuses because of Corona and we were all at home. And so we just got randomly paired with random people from like the other campuses, and it was actually really cool talking to them. Like, I feel like just because I knew that the other person was from UWC, it just made things so much easier just to talk to them. Like, I felt like we were already friends before we had even began talking, and I think that is, again, just like the power of recognizing that we both share UWC, even though, like Steph said, it's so different for each person.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to see how, although we feel that we have this common ground or something like that, the experiences are so different from campus to campus, like depending like on the location of the campus culture, the people, obviously. And it's crazy to think that like if different people had come in our year, like how our experience would be different than it is now. And yeah, so I was paired with this guy from Haiti, and he was going to UWC Costa Rica, and like it was crazy how the experience is different, but you still know that it's a UWC school, and you still feel that it's like this big UWC community that's like huge, like thousands of alumni, but you still feel close to everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool. And like back to what we were talking about earlier, I think with like for example, in Beirut or with like the Black Lives Matter movement, like I think for me, I found that I'm not, like by myself, I wouldn't be very educated on these things, and I think like my social circles back home were the same because our focus is elsewhere, and just on the things like that are maybe going on in Canada, or for me like things that are going on in Hong Kong. But I found that with like coming back from UWC, like I was just a lot more connected to the events of the world. Like even when I was back home and I wasn't actually at the campus, like even if I wasn't talking to people from my school every day, like I saw on their social medias, like the news, like I think I knew about the Beirut explosion like right after it happened, before like major news sources picked up on it, just because like our friends were posting on social media. And like that's really cool because then when they educate us on it, we're also able to educate our friends in our social circles back home who may not know about these things. So it's like the circle just keeps on expanding and expanding into like so many different communities, because once my friend shares with her group of friends, which includes me, and then I share with my group of friends, and then my friends share with their group of friends, like the circle is like slowly expanding and like moving outwards, which I think is like so cool. And I think that really speaks to like the mission of UWC, like using education as a force to like unite people. And in these moments, it's so important, like during a pandemic and like explosions and like floodings and everything.
Yeah, and for me, like I think like being from Canada, which is, I don't know, kind of, I've always felt kind of far away from everything that happened around the world, and coming here has definitely made me feel like, well, physically I feel like I'm closer to a lot of things that happen, but also I feel much like a much deeper, I think, emotional connection to all of the events that happen, just because we know that like we have friends there, or we know people from there, and we know that they're maybe affected by these events, and it just makes me feel a lot more connected, and feel like much more of it also creates much more of a need in myself to create change and to want to be involved in the solution for these problems. Also, another thing that we can talk about, I think that speaks to like how UWC creates of a united force, is we've participated for both of our 2 years here in this study from Harvard University, that's the Harvard Impact Study, and they're studying if UWC alums, like they're studying if and how UWC graduates become forces and are maybe more involved in their community than someone who has not attended a UWC, which is also a very interesting thing, I think, to study, because like we come to these schools and you wonder like, does it make a difference in our life after, and are we more involved in our community or involved differently in our community than if we hadn't come here? So this is definitely a very like cool thing to be a part of. And they've also like we've filled out these questionnaires about our experience here and what we've learned, and surveys have also been sent to alums and the whole like global UWC community. So that's also like, you know, it's a very broad view of what people have learned over the years through their experience here at UWC.
Yeah. And I think like speaking of like the difference between UWC and normal schools, like it's just important for us, I think, to think about like how UWC is different than just like an international school that you go to, because I don't know, from the outside, maybe without the name, like we could just be an international school, and if we didn't try to like strive by the values and be driven by the mission of UWC, like that, you wouldn't really feel the force. Like I remember just yesterday we were having like pre-UWC Day celebrations, just because we have like school today, but being in this being in the community, like taking our group pictures, going from event to event and seeing the performances, and even though there was not necessarily like a specific focus on politics of the world or anything else, but rather just being together in the community, like that was such a driving force, because you could just really feel like the togetherness of the community, and like that you feel at home and that you belong, and that you know, like even if you're from different backgrounds, that you can really get along with one another. Like speaking from my own personal experience, like you know, the people from Hong Kong and people from China, we were able to take a picture together, no conflicts, both our flags were in the same picture, and that was like, I don't know, that was like really nice to feel. Yeah, and also like when I compare it to my past experiences, like back at my old school, and whenever we were together as a community, like it wasn't bad back then either, like it was still great to be at home, but it's just a different feeling of community than it is here. And I don't know, I feel like there's much more of like a driving force behind everything that you do. And I think being like with United World Colleges, it's like in the name United, and I think there's a lot more intention of trying to be like together and as one.
Yeah, and I definitely feel that what we experience here, you know, is gonna, and not like our experience here and everything that we learn here is also like gonna stay with us like so much longer. Like it's not just gonna stop once we graduate. Like I feel like we're gonna come home, and I don't think it's only about like meeting other people from UWC. It's also just like inside of us, like our perspective and our openness to the world that has changed. And I think for me at least, it's interesting to see when I come back home how my parents feel, or my friends and family feel that I've changed over like the time span that I haven't been with them, and I think that also contributes to this force of the impact that we can bring after our time at UWC as well. Yeah, so all the, you know, the critical thinking, you know, questioning authority, questioning information, yeah, learning to be open and tolerant, and learning to listen to others, even if they have different experiences or different opinions. And I think that's the beauty of being here, and I think that's something we really need to embrace, being here in such a diverse community.
For sure. And United World College will be a driving force for you to come visit me.
Exactly.
Anyways, yeah. Speaking of like UWC being an example of uniting forces, we want to introduce two very special people who are a wonderful example of uniting forces. So this would be Ruben Vardanyan and Veronica Zonoben, who are the wonderful founders of United World College Dilijan.
So to start off, Ruben is an Armenian-Russian social entrepreneur, an impact investor, and a venture philanthropist. He's a recognized expert on the global economy, entrepreneurship, and education, and he provides strategic consulting through his membership of board of directors, advisory boards, trusteeships of commercial companies, and non-governmental organizations. He's also on the board of many educational institutions, public and professional bodies. Among them are the Aznavour Foundation, the business school, some business schools in Russia and Brazil, and a major Armenian bank, Armenia Bank, which we also use a lot, and Russia's auto major.
Wow. Yeah, and he is a prominent financier. He's also known for his commercial projects, so like investment companies and yeah, a lot of stuff, and as well as his deep-reaching like philanthropic programs, so such as our school, UWC Dilijan, which is actually the first UWC college in Eastern Europe, and he's also involved in the Tatev Revival Project, which includes the construction of the world's longest cableway leading to an ancient monastery, also known, I think, as the Wings of Tatev, which we dearly love.
Yeah, there's been a lot of project weeks there, and I know people like enjoyed a lot. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, the second founder of our college that Kylie mentioned earlier is Veronica Zonabend. She's an impact investor and social entrepreneur. She is the founding partner and she's the chair of the board of governors of UWC Dilijan in Armenia. She's actively involved in philanthropy, focusing primarily on the promotion of global education.
I don't know if we mentioned earlier, but Ruben and Veronica are actually married. So Veronica, along with Ruben, are the founders of the RVBZ Family Foundation and the IDEA Charitable Foundation, which implement philanthropic sustainable development projects in Russia and Armenia. And Veronica also sits on the board of trustees at UWC International and the American University of Armenia. And she also chairs the board of directors at Teach for Armenia Educational Foundation. So she is very involved in education, which is really awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And in 2014, the President of the Republic of Armenia awarded Veronica the Order of Friendship in recognition of her many contributions for fostering educational development and international collaboration in science and education, as well as for her substantial efforts in building this school in Dilijan and implementing many academic programs.
Yeah, so we are truly like super grateful for their work, and we're really inspired by their mission. And now we are honored to hand over the floor to them.
Here at Dilijan, first of all, we now have 215 students on campus. We're only missing 11, and we expect them to be here very soon. Moreover, it is UWC Day, which this year is under the theme United We Can. It is also the United Nations International Day of Peace, and these 2 days are celebrated together as the UWC movement has a mission to make education a force to unite people, nations, and cultures for peace and a sustainable future. We've had a whole day of events organized by UWC Dilijan and the UWC National Committees of Armenia, Russia, Georgia, and Uzbekistan. We've had speakers talking about their own priorities and values, which inspire them to fight for human rights, to help the homeless, the elderly, and to drive an effort to assist Lebanon in light of the recent tragedy. For me, the special event was this year's alum Sandro Chumasvili from Georgia, who single-handedly started a campaign to urge Georgia to help Armenia as the COVID-19 crisis got worse here during the summer. It is only appropriate that today we also hear from UWC Dilijan founders, Ruben Vardanian and Veronica Sonaven. Together with the funding partners, Nubar and Nana Afeyan, Gagi Kadibekian, Vladimir and Anna Avetisian, and Oleg Nekerchan, they funded the school construction with the startup capital. They built state-of-the-art facilities in this most beautiful location. They also thought, what type of a school is needed for the future of education, for education that is crucial for today's world. We asked Alba and Abdikani, 2 of our second-year students, to lead the conversation with Ruben and Veronica, which will last about 30 to 40 minutes. You, the audience, are welcome to ask any questions via the chat. But before Alba and Abdikani start the interview, let me please say a few words about Ruben and Veronica. After graduating from Moscow University, Ruben started a very successful investment company, Troika Dialog, in Russia in the 90s. At the time, Russia was opening up. Veronica is an aeronautical engineer who graduated from Moscow Aviation Institute and then began her career at the Research Institute of Avionics in Russia. As the Soviet Union collapsed, Ruben and Veronica found themselves in a new environment, and they showed resilience in a true UWC fashion and applied the business acumen and entrepreneurship to other spheres. Professional success has not been the only driving force in Ruben and Veronica's lives. With their success came responsibility, which they both embraced, becoming social entrepreneurs who use their personal largesse and their talents to make a difference in the lives of others. You can see from the formal bios some of the many courses they've been supporting and driving. Today, we look forward to Alba and Abdikani talking to Ruben and Veronica about their passion for education and UWC Dilijan. I would like to mention that Abdikani's scholarship is kindly supported by Sergei Belousov and Paul and Jaffa Maritz. Alba, Abdikani, over to you. Please introduce yourself first to our audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. Hello, everyone. My name is Alba Hammertag, and I am part of UWC Dilijan's class of 2021. I'm from Sweden originally, but I've also grown up in New Jersey and Hong Kong, being selected for UWC through the Hong Kong National Committee. During my time here at UWC Dilijan, I've not only been able to pursue my longstanding passions and aspirations of educating by volunteering and assisting many projects in the local Dilijan community, but I've also discovered numerous new interests and passions, specifically in the field of political science, that I'm looking forward to continue pursuing after my graduation in May.
Thank you so much, Alpha. My name is Abdikani and I'm from Somaliland. I'm a second year student at UWC Dilijan, and I'm planning to double major with computer science and electrical engineering. I had the opportunity to join such a diverse and multicultural community last year, and I have enjoyed every single moment of it. I've learned and taught, and I think my experience here is worth reliving. Now I think enough of me, and let me say thank you so much to Master Fardanian and Mrs. Sonaben, who without their support, UWC wouldn't exist. Thank you so much, and let me pass it to Alpha.
Thank you. So the first question we want to propose to Mr. Vardanyan. You are clearly a very successful businessman. And would you mind telling us a little bit about why you decided to pursue a path of being a social investor and a philanthropist? And if there was any specific moment or event in your life that encouraged you to take that step?
Thank you, Alva. Thank you, Amdani. Hi, Gabriel, and hi, everybody. I'm very glad to be part of today's conversation. I've been involved in different social projects decades because I always believe the transformation was happening especially in the developing world, cannot happen only in capitalism part, but it needs to be change the social environment also. That's why with my partner, my wife Veronica, we've been talking about importance of education is one of the core elements of success of 21st century. That's why when I came back from Harvard in 2001, I said it will be very critical for emerging markets to develop its own education system in business, but also in general education. And we've been doing this different projects many years because we know from our own personal stories that only education can give the people a chance to change their life and change the life of others. That's why when we started to do our school in Armenia, and we found later about United World College movement, we found this is very compelling with us because we both become successful in our entrepreneurial activities in an environment that was a lot of uncertainties, a lot of unpredictability, a lot of turbulence. And the core element of success was for us our level of adaptivity, our level of curiosity, our desire to learn more and to learn from others. That's why we like a lot the concept of United World College. And we said it's a great combination of bringing global and local together, like we name it local concept to the Armenian, to this region, our region. But for me, being a business person, I always believe the key element of the future it will be education.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. So we wanted to hear a little bit more about the philanthropic projects you were involved in prior to starting UWC Dilijan. So would you mind going a little bit more into detail about your very early philanthropic projects and what you learned from them and how they kind of influenced what you continue to pursue later on?
Yeah, one of the first our project was in Troika Dialogue. We've been supporting the orphan school for disabled kids, and it was very emotional, touching project because it was not only the company but involved, but every employee who provide money with double amount of the money which was provided by employees. It was also a lot of personal attachment, and many our employee work with the kids, and they went to the school and they organized New Year and Christmas, and it was very successful, and we felt very proud about how we've been helpful to this orphan school. Unfortunately, 10 years later, during these 10 years we've been doing this, I asked the question, what's happening after the kids that graduated the school? And I found that 70% of them died or went to the prison or couldn't get drugs because of the no social adaptation was happening when they finished the school 16 years old, being disabled or not in a very good health conditions, and nobody was caring about them. And I realized this was one of the most painful time for me because I realized that when you're doing some good things, you need to think not only what you're doing good today, but also how you will follow after what's happening with the people that you are helping. This was one of our most painful experience, which I got myself during 90s when it was done. And after that, we decided with Veronica, we've been doing our project always looking not only what is happening today, but impact will be happening 5, 10, or 20 years ahead Also, we've been looking at self-sustainable project, which can be dependent not only from ourselves, but we will become self-sustainable from point of supporting activities, not only when you can provide your own money, but also when this money will be generating some revenue which can support the projects. One of the big projects which we did, it's a business school in Russia. It was established in 2005. This year we're celebrating 15 years. It was quite ambitious project to build a business school in Moscow to help Russian and non-Russian citizens to learn about how to do business in a emerging market. And it become now leading school in our region. In Financial Times, it was recognized among the top 50 schools worldwide, and it's the youngest school who achieves this remarkable result. And basically, it was a very good example of collaboration of people from different part of the world. It was not only our own money, but also we got support from Russian and non-Russian international business people. It was really combined efforts of 18 founding members, which include people from India, Shiv Kemker family, include the BP from Britain, Credit Suisse, International Paper, Schlumberger, PwC, Ernst & Young, and it was big international group of companies and people who support the project, and it was a group of Russians who joined us and support, which I found is very important with our whole project. We've been doing collegially. We've been doing together with our partners and friends who've been supporting this idea. That's why it was very important for us with Veronica. What we've been doing is jointly with the many other people. And the business school is one example of the project which we've been doing before UWC Dilijan.
Thank you so much. I think that was a really, really inspiring story. So now a question to you again. This time we wanna know more details about why you were involved in UWC and why did you, how did the idea of starting UWC in Dilijan came to your mind?
Ms. Sonnabend, if you want to go into some more detail about that.
Maybe Veronica can elaborate more about it because I think it's her baby, and I'm very happy to join and tell the story about Manfred Schäffert. But it's really good for Veronica maybe to start.
Yes. Good afternoon and greetings to all of you, and thank you for being with us today. Yes, Ruben mentioned about the Skolkovo Business School in Russia. It's for all their age for adults. But what we realized that the biggest impact happens at early age, and we were always passionate about their making people to know each other, be able to communicate with their people from very different parts of the world, very different cultures, and this is what creates the future. These people are and become even more important in our world today. As we see, we need bridge builders who are able to find common ground and common language with people apart and who don't belong to their community, immediate community, and keen to learn more and also to find solutions in a very complicated situations. And we both were born in the Soviet Union, and that was big country with many nations in it. It is about 160 nations who live, but it was separated from the world by iron wall, and it was the desire to build a center in our part of the world that helps people to come, learn, and to study together, and also to learn other people. And Ruben mentioned also about UWC. We got across the system. It was the initially idea of international school to build in Armenia. because Armenia is there like a crossroads of several civilizations, and it's part of Middle East, part of former Soviet Union, and also Armenia has very big diaspora, which is several times bigger than the population of the country. So they're a very connected nation, networking nation. Before webs started in our days. And there, we started to set up with our partners and with the prominent board that we managed to attract our ethos and principles and strategy for the school we want to set up in Armenia. And there, Manfred Skeppers, who was CF4 of EBRD at that time, came across by business purposes and alum of Atlantic College in Russia to present UWC model, and Ruben presented him model of the school that we thought. And it was interesting that we were almost the same ethos that we set up, and that UWC has its in core. So we understood that it's natural marriage, and we became part of UWC movement, and happy that we joined like family we knew before, and aligned with the people who have similar view about the future and about what education is for. And Armenia, why Dilijan also? Dilijan is a beautiful place. So anyone who comes loves there, and it's the nature, as it's called, this place is the Switzerland over Caucasus. So it's and there. So the idea was that to have wow effect, and there we wanted also from the very beginning to build campus that also attracts and becomes very distinguished, because architecture is very big part of our life. That's what we create. And there we're grateful to Tim Flynn, who created this beautiful campus, and he visited about 60 schools around the world to get new ideas and to implement it in Armenia. So here we are.
Wow, such an amazing answer. Thank you so much. Now I would like to go into UWC, and I mean, this experience has been amazing. It has been transformational. It's almost 6 years, and we already see the effect on people. So what I would like to ask you now is, where do you see UWC in our 10th year reunion?
UWC in general or UWC Dilijan?
Especially UWC Dilijan, yes, of course.
From the very beginning, our aspiration and their ambitious goal was to create an educational center in this part of the world that attracts not only people from the region, but from all over the world, and that we have to nurture and help to grow people who will lead the world in the future, so who will become those who are able and ready to take responsibility about global challenges, and also about the local challenges, and move their community, either local or global community, to thrive. And there also what we as well believe, that it is essential that those young people who come to Dilijan they develop themselves in their uniqueness and also keeping their unique identity. They become as well global, again, bridge builders between different communities and between different cultures. And also they are able to look beyond immediate look, but to the future. And they're also, when I hope that in 10 years time, maybe not in 10, in 20 years time, people who will become named for Nobel Prize, for become some leaders of some countries and nations, will be, among them will be many alumni of Dilijan. And so they will have in their heart Armenia as the second home country, where they know that in Dilijan is the place in the globe where they can always come and find support for their ideas, to find their support in challenging times of their life, and can rely and trust people whom they meet there. And also would like to send their children to study there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was really insightful. This question will be directed to you both, Master Ferdanian and Ms. Sonaben. You have been involved with so many organizations and projects. How does your experience with UWC differ from your past experiences and projects? If you would like to go first, Mr. Ferdanian, please.
What do you say? What is the difference? I would say one of the uniqueness of United World College network is international community, which really amazing from point of bringing together kids from all over the world, and we are becoming the ambassador of our own countries and coming to Armenia, learning about the local community, local nation, and at the same time keeping their identity. I think it's a quite fantastic difference compared with many other projects I saw during my philanthropic activity. And I will say also, when you see the teenagers who really wants to change the world for better, you are getting a lot of positive emotions because you believe the world in a good shape, because the next generation is doing the same what you've been doing. Is why it's always complaints sometimes what's happening with old people saying, oh, it's the new generation is not doing like we've been doing. It's showing it's not true. In each generation you have a fantastic kids who really want to change the world for better and really dedicate their life for this. I think it's a very important element for me, the big difference compared to many other projects that I've been involved. And it's also about the tolerance and understanding and learning from each other, and understanding that we are all different, with different background, different nationality, different religion, different maybe wealth from the families coming, but we are similar, same people who needs to think about the world, the planet in general, not only about our own problems. So I'll say, for me, the United World College, it was always been quite unique example of something which was very important for the being positive and believe the future of the world.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. Ms. Sonaban, you went into beautiful detail earlier about the reasons behind choosing Armenia and specifically Dilijan as the location for this college. But for either of you, what kind of challenges have you faced with choosing Armenia as a location, considering what you mentioned earlier, that it's a post-Soviet country? Have you faced any challenges in terms of that with putting a school like UWC in this country?
Yes, there were a lot of challenges that we faced. Some of them were expected, some not. First of all, the main challenge that we face, that it's very unusual concept for that part of the world, and they're ambitious in terms of their bar and standard that we wanted to set up. It's until now is the only one international school which is which has the goal to be an educational center by itself, not to be an infrastructure for expat community, but to have young people and the families are willing to send their children for that quite unusual in terms of international education part of the world, to get to know something new. And that we are again now happy to have more than 70 representatives of more than 70 countries in Dilijan. And that was also despite we haven't used any penny of government money, and all the funds were from our family and raised from other families of our partners. So there were a lot of complaints about that so much funds were invested only in one school instead of investing in 100 schools around Armenia. So that their idea itself to raise the bar and build something never existed, and also which seemed to be a miracle when it was an idea, and the acceptance of public, of the people, and also that Armenian nation that suffered a lot within its history, challenging history, also that we support, the school supports not only Armenians to come and study in the country. That was the challenge, which is now, I can't say that it's completely over, but acceptance is much bigger because the results are already in place. And we have a lot of ambassadors already of Armenia around the world. And also many alumni already come back to Armenia and want to start the projects here with different knowledge, and they're also created different, again, example, which is hard to compare with anything because nothing existed. And there, again, I believe the challenges bring opportunities also. We have much more opportunities in Dilijan than schools in established world like in US or UK to bring completely different approach to education. And it's not about IB results, it's not about the tests, but it's about very different experience, which helps and prepares young people for the new world, for different reality, and they're also equips with the skills that are necessary in 21st century. And so we have much more opportunities here in Armenia than we would have in developed world, because regulations are less, and also it's possible to co-create them together with the government. And we have the vision of creating Dilijan educational cluster, which is not only UWC International High School, but also with the local school, with Creative Arts Center, and with many things that is deeply integrated into the country, into life of Dilijan, and creates ecosystem, is the core of ecosystem around.
That's incredible. You've really done an amazing job. So we want to ask a little bit about what other projects you've been involved with in Armenia, and if you see them having kind of this international significance that we see in UWC Dilijan as well.
I'm very proud to tell the story about our other initiative, which names Aurora Humanitarian Initiative, which is also very close connected to United World College, because we established 5 years ago the movement, Engaged in Action, basically saying thank you to people who saved the lives of our grandparents and during the genocide time in 1915, 1923. And it was established in New York in March 10 in 2015 on the behalf of survivors of the genocide, but it became big international humanitarian movement where we include Aurora Prize, and I'm very proud to say it became one of the most respected humanitarian activities in the world. And 2 days ago, it was announcement about our 50th laureate, mother and daughter, and from Somali. And I will say it's honestly, it's amazing people who just all of them bringing example of something which we need to learn and to realize how people keep the Fortuna Dan in El Wald Elman. It's example of the people who have a courage and unbelievable desire to save the lives of others, despite the father and husband was killed and one of the sisters was killed during the last couple of years. They continue doing very humanitarian activity in Somali. And all our laureates and our finalists, it's amazing stories, which I'm very happy with. Many of them came to United World College, and they then maybe in Armenia in the previous years, and they told about what they been doing and why they're doing. And I think it's a great example of people who dedicate their life to save lives of others. And I think it's a very important initiative, which I'm very proud to doing with our partner Nubara Feyan and Anna Feyan family, with Vartan Grigoryan, the president of Carnegie Corporation. And I think all we've been doing, it was good example of saying you can continue the cycle of gratitude in action and giving back. And I think it was very important to Armenians to learn about how we can, despite all the tragedy we are carrying in our nation, to support and help other nations to get back to the normal life. And I think it is a very good example of the engagement of the global international community to do something which is very critical for the world about human values. It's one of the example of our initiatives, which we believe it's very critical for the world and very critical for the humans, just stay humans.
Thank you so much. And now I have a question for Ms. Sonoben. We know that you are interested in art. Please let us know why you are interested in creativity in general, and how did your education in engineering influenced your projects?
Yeah, art is, I believe that creativity is one of the most important criterion and their abilities of us as human beings. Because I believe that in the future, your generation will compete not with each other, but you will compete with artificial intellect. And their priority of human beings, of the people against artificial intellect, first of all, is creativity. Creativity is ability to find solutions that nobody can expect. Nobody knows yet what is algorithm, why it happens, how it happens, why some solutions come up without any kind of preliminary understanding. And it requires broad education. It requires knowledge in very different areas. Even I studied at in Moscow Aviation Institute. They're general constructors, aviation constructors who were from at the beginning of the industry, like Mikoyan, Tupolev, and others. They were not only pure narrow engineers, they were poets, they were like artists, they were musicians, so they were exposed to creativity, because it's very important to find new solutions in any area. And therefore, one of their distinctiveness of UWC Dilijan is art. It is very strong. We have very strong art center. And in the future, as the second phase of our Dilijan campus is performing arts center to build with prominent music hall and also theater that attracts creative people from the region and beyond, and also to have conduct festivals and to conduct events for the region. And this is very important. And I was always also, even in my family history, those who are in our business in New York, they all know that Zonavent family. It happened to be my relatives who had it. And it's over, the collection was sold. And it's so I believe that it's whoever you are, even to do the best and to be prominent in the area, creative art and art in any kind, in music, in visual art, or even sometimes theater, or even in conjunction of interdisciplinary, is very important for any person to be exposed also, and to enjoy life in general, and to develop intellectual also ability. And art is something that connects mind and heart, because it's about emotions.
That's beautifully said. Thank you. So I have a question directed to you both. When you think about UWC Dilijan and you think about what the school has become, what three words would come to your mind to describe it and to describe the institution as a whole?
The three words. I think inspiring, fascinating, because it's a unique combination of so many people together, and inspiring, fascinating, and encouraging, I will say, because it's giving me a lot of encouragement. I will say, yeah. Also, I think it's very important to tell about importance with UWC spending time with the local community. And I will say one thing which is critical to say: it is not only a small community which living in a close circle. No, it's a very important. Of course, this year is very special because of pandemic, but overall, always been the community activity was very important, and we can see already how many kids from Dilijan being engaged, and they themselves saw the opportunity to study going abroad, and how many of them learning English, Spanish, other foreign languages, and how they are learning to communicate with the kids from other countries. As I say, it's very important also, this local concept, which I like a lot.
That's lovely. And Ms. Zonavent, would you consider sharing 3 words as well?
So yes, inspiration. So inspiration and the beauty, because it gives beauty, and their meaning. Because every time I myself, despite it's like Ruben's told that it's my baby, I feel that when I come, that my life has purpose and meaning. Look at their impact, and I told the students, all of you, and that it happens at school gives a lot of inspiration, and also gives the purpose, and gives you that it has meaning more. And also looking at the teachers who inspire and develop young people to something and are role models about what people are to be, how they have to treat each other, and what is caring, and maybe one more word, caring community, to see that it is the norm for us as people to treat each other, not what we see in many places. And yeah, unfortunately, that would be that way. In Aurora, we see that people can stand and oppose that something and stand for this humanitarian values that are very important for us.
That's incredible, and I definitely agree with a lot of the words. So I have one final question, specifically aimed at Ms. Zonabend. When you first started this project, what kind of impact did you hope to make on both students and on the local Dilijan community? And how do you see that being reflected today? And what evidence do you see for that being achieved?
Yes. Thank you. So that first of all, if we talk about community, that we can see. So that I am very glad that now most of the young people, most of kids and teenagers in Dilijan believe that they can become architects of their future, that they can achieve what they dream about, they want, if they put enough effort and are consistent. So, and that is, they see examples of that already. That is the impact. Another impact on the students, on you, see that you all come from various circumstances and also parts of the world, and how we have already first generation of our graduates graduated from the universities, and what they achieved and what they chose, what paths they chose, what decided to do, also shows that the impact and how they solve their problems, how they think about the world, how they treat other people, also shows the impact. And also that Armenia is, we can see about and read about Armenia in many magazines about education, that it's became map of the became on the educational map of the world. And there also Ruben and I were very glad and grateful that we now have such a caring and their community, thanks to Gabriel and Natalie, who treat this community as their extended family. And that is very important. And unfortunately, we see it not very often in the world right now, but this is already that we show that this is their norm, because that is for us, and the future depends on us, depends on how we treat each other, what we do, and also maybe also important to show example that you can live what you preach. Whereas very often what we see, it became also unfortunately a norm that people say one thing and do another. So we in Dilijan do what we say.
Thank you so much. Now I have a question to ask both of you to get to know you more on a personal level. So the first question would be, what are your mottos?
Veronica, what is your motto?
Say first. Let me think.
I will say a little off. The main point of the which makes me driving me is the love. Because I believe without love, you cannot do anything. That's why when you love somebody, you're ready to give your life to save the person or whatever, your motherland or your family. That's why the love is the main driver of many things I'm doing.
Yeah, similar. It's the main, maybe add something that, again, do what you preach for, and there also that love will save the world, and it's important to be resilient and patient and passionate about what you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now I would like to ask you if there is any quote that you think defines you the best.
Any
quote?
Yeah.
Any quote.
Slogan or.
You know, I like the quote from many famous people who've been saying a lot of. I think one of the is Peter Drucker. It's to best way predict your future, make your future. And but the other one, which I really inspire me a lot, it's the co-chair, the first co-chair of Aurora Selection Committee, Elie Wiesel. He said, "The opposite side of beautiful is not ugly; it's indifference. The opposite side of the love is not hate; it's indifference. And opposite side of life is not death; is indifference." So I believe one of the most dangerous element is being indifferent. That's why I always believe it's very critical to have a patient care about others. That's why I am a strong believer this is one of the key driver of love and curiosity to make the world better, to make life better for others. I think is very critical.
That's amazing. And Ms. Donovan, do you have any quote you would like to share that you think defines you and what you do?
We live too long together, so we have very similar. Yeah, probably what I was thinking about, the very similar. That no, maybe nothing to add.
Okay, thank you so much. Those were all the questions we had prepared for you today. And so Gabriel will do some closing remarks and some further questions from the audience, but we want to thank you for your time, and it was very insightful. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Alba and Abdikani, for leading this very interesting conversation. So I've got one question for you, both of you. What's the best advice that has been given to you, and therefore would you pass on to young people?
Never give up. You know, it's a lot of times you're feeling exhausted, and a lot of time you're feeling what you're doing is not giving you back results immediately. And never give up. It's when you have a passion and believe what you're doing something right, I think it's give you a lot of power and making you stronger.
Thank you. Veronica?
To be patient in implementation of your plans, and to be prepared and forgiving for mistakes of the people, and also to be resilient in achieving what you plan to achieve, and not to lose focus.
I think that all of your answers apply to our students at UWC Diligent. Maybe we'll make them part of the student handbook. So first of all, let me please thank Alba and Abdikani again. You can see them as examples of our exceptional students. Sincere thanks to Ruben and Veronica for participating in our UWC Day virtual celebration today. Ruben, Veronica, you built this wonderful school, and I think the spirit of the community which you inspire is evident from today's conversation. My personal thanks to both of you for your ongoing support to me and my family. I would like to thank everyone, all of you participating in this session, and I hope that you find it illuminating to meet the people who are behind the whole idea of UWC Dilijan. I would also like to take this opportunity to remind our community and our parents that UWC's diversity is empowered by a large-scale scholarship program. As you know, we're in an ongoing fundraising campaign for more scholarships. If you have any ideas about how to help us ensure that this diversity is delivered, please let us know. Thank you very much. And happy Armenian Independence Day.
Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you, Alva. Thank you for lovely conversation, and thank you for everything you're doing, Gabriel.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Your life.
Hi, konnichiwa. This is Shintao. I'm from Japan. I'm a second year in UWC Dilijan.
And yeah, salam sejatra. My name is Javen. I'm from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and I'm a DP2 as well this year. So it was a very nice interview we had, yeah?
Yeah, thank you for Abdikani and Alba for lovely interview.
Yeah, with Ruben
and also Veronica and Ruben for great support to our community.
Yeah, without them we wouldn't be where we are today. So again, thank you from all the students of UWC Dilijan. So just a reminder for those of us who just joined or those of us who didn't know, what are we doing today, Shintaro?
It's so today, 21st of September is UWC Day, where we celebrate UWC values all over the globe, in all UWCs. So
and yeah, it's not just celebrating the UWC values, but we're also celebrating the UWC mission, the reason why all of us are here. And also, you know, today is also the United Nations International Day of Peace. So it's very fitting that our UWC Day coincides with the UN International Day of Peace, sorry. So maybe you can tell them a bit about the celebrations that we had over the weekend.
Okay, so since today is Monday and we had a school, we had some celebration yesterday instead of today. So yesterday in the morning, we on the field took a group photo, and we could see people in their national costumes, with their flags of their countries. And actually, since we have had so many restrictions because of COVID-19, it was the first actually moment after we arrived here to see actually like whole community with like their national costumes, like that shows their, I don't know, like nationalities or difference. And it was just beautiful to see like differences. And also as UWC Valley, we have celebration of difference. And it was a nice opportunity to see us being different and celebrating.
And yeah, I think like what's really special about UWC is that there's just so much diversity, and that we managed to see so many different like representations of cultures, people, nations. And after the school the whole school-wide photograph and the group photographs, there was also a celebration of the arts. So as you know, the arts is a very big part of the UWC and the IB program. So we had some performances by our very talented choir. There were a selection and I guess a repertoire of dances, you know, from China, from Armenia, and there was some music as well. There was a lot of there was also a bit of demonstration of like the Armenian sort of music, but it was it had the contemporary style, which was really nice. And finally, we had a couple of monologues, a couple of performances from our very talented theater friends as well. And yesterday was a really nice day because after being separated for so long by COVID, it was just really nice to see everyone's faces again. It was nice to see all of us and reminding us of why we are here, to make education a force to unite people, nations, and cultures for peace and a sustainable future.
And yesterday was a day which reminded me of how privileged we are and how people here are so talented. And I mean, living here in like daily lives, we just sometimes forget how privileged we are to be here with people from literally all over the world. But yeah, yesterday was a good chance to actually remember that like we are in this great environment, and we are also supported by so many donors and then so many people.
Yeah, and we're also really lucky because around the world, many schools are still affected by closures, and some UWCs will have to celebrate UWC Day online. So we're very, really lucky, and we're thankful to all the teachers and all the donors who have allowed us to actually come back to our campus. So let's talk a bit about UWC Day in particular. So last year's theme was climate of change.
Climate change.
And what did we do for last year?
Last year we had some sessions about where we could think about how we can how we can tackle the problems that we are facing now, like global warming or plastic problems. And yeah, it was where we could see like UWC mission, where as a community we try to tackle like so many problems.
And yeah, and this year's theme is actually United We Can. And actually, I feel it's a very important theme because the whole crux of the UWC mission is actually about bringing people, nations, and cultures together. But due to many difficulties faced this year, like the Beirut explosion and COVID-19, we humans as a social species has always been very used to coming together and uniting together so that we can work on problems and tackle problems together. And many of the issues that we face today, such as the climate crisis, such as basically inflation in many countries, all these problems can only be solved if we unite and tackle these problems head on. So that's basically the celebration and what we are trying to raise awareness about today, about how united we can actually overcome anything. And over the weekend, we also, the benefits of being in a UWC is that we get to learn a lot, not just about other countries, but our host country as well, our host country, Armenia.
For sure.
And maybe we can share about the regional evening we had on Saturday.
Okay, so Saturday, for those who don't know what regional evening is, it's event where people from a specific region do some performances, for example, dances, and they sometimes sing, they sometimes make presentation about their culture. And of course, on daily basis, we're, we're getting to know their cultures, but that event is designed for us to actually know their cultures more. And it was nice to see Armenian dances, Georgian dances, and
yeah, I mean, it's one of the benefits of being a UWC. Yeah. And while we're talking about UWC values, because UWC Day is a celebration of the values that we share, I feel that these evenings really allow us to live the values of celebration of difference.
For sure, yeah.
And as well as international and intercultural understanding. So we are very lucky that our very talented Armenian, Georgian, and Turkish choreographers were able to put on a performance. And for all of you who were not able to be here, we wish you were here.
Yeah,
this weekend was just probably one of the best weekends we've ever had in the past year.
Talking about Armenian culture, looking back before coming here, being honest, I didn't know anything about Armenia. I'm so sorry if any Armenian people are watching, but I didn't know anything about Armenia. I knew the name, and I knew where it was because I was coming here, but I didn't know any culture or personality and what Armenia has. But being here for 1 year, we've learned so many things, and just so nice to have those kind of input to me.
Yeah, and it's really amazing as well because the school actually, being in the UWC, we get to have project weeks as well. So over project weeks, it's really an opportunity to get to know our host country better. And to tell you the truth, I think I can speak on behalf of many, many people in this school. I believe that all of us have truly enjoyed eating Armenian food and learning about Armenian culture.
Okay, so talking about the theme United We Can, I think we can talk about some initiatives that was
for sure.
Some other
students. Again, this year, 2020, will undoubtedly be marked as the year of COVID. It's the year that COVID reared its ugly head, and we learned the importance of what we have and how we as a human species can do so much better. So this story is actually one that we find very inspiring. It's the story of two students from our sister school, UWC SEA or UWC in Singapore. And basically, what happened was, many of us, they were forced to do schools online. They were forced to actually, stay home because in Singapore, the COVID cases was very high. So the government actually implemented a circuit breaker. And so many of them were actually forced to stay at home. And, with the circuit breaker, obviously there were many economic impacts. And one such economic impact was, I think, unemployment.
Unemployment,
And
yeah.
then people, obviously, one of the causes of unemployment is mental health, right?
Yeah.
Like we learn in economics. So they realized that many people had a lot of problems when it came to unemployment. They needed support emotionally and they needed support financially. And so, being stuck at home, they felt really helpless. But then they realized that, we just got to think outside the box. So these two sisters actually set out to help the community. They actually created a website called Hopebound, which is a play on the word homebound, which is actually a website with a collection of resources for those affected by the pandemic. Initially, they actually wanted to just bring support to people who, who did not know of available resources, but then they thought bigger, They saw it as one of the UWC values is actually personal challenge. So they actually challenged themselves, and because, they were compelled to do something, they ended up starting two programs. One was a mentorship program for those who have recently lost their jobs, and this mentorship program was where they actually got professionals to help them write their CVs, their resumes, to provide basically advice for them on how to progress future in their careers. And the second was a psychological support program for anyone in need of mental health assistance. And this is a clear example of how united we can, because initially they didn't have any support, but they reached out to professionals, and they ended up getting many people who volunteered to help actually these people who have lost their jobs. And I think a good thing about the COVID crisis is that not only has it shown us how vulnerable we are, it has also shown us how humans at our best
it
can really
just
do so
taught
much.
us how we can, even in such a difficult situation, we can find a way to support people, way to support those vulnerable people. And obviously in this case there were people who were in need, and those two sisters were saw people suffering in front of their eyes, and they wanted to do something, and
they didn't let the excuse of being in the bedroom stop them,
Yeah.
They did it from home. And I think here at UWC we throw the word change maker around a lot. But I think these two sisters embody what it truly means to be a change maker. And I think here at UWC we don't see problems, we see opportunities for making changes. And I think maybe you can talk a bit about your experience in Japan and how that relates to this whole
So here in this case, these two sisters actually launched something to help people to do what they wanted to do. And I mean, looking back home in Japan, it was not common at all to start something, launch something when we were 17, or teenagers. I mean, excuse we give is we are still young, and then people don't respect us, socially, in the society our position is not that strong, we don't have power. But obviously, as it's said in our theme, united we can. Even though we are small, we might not have power. If we can be united and we can be 100, 1,000, million, we can be really strong. Even if you're a teenager, and
the sisters were only 17, I think.
Yeah.
The other one was 20. So age definitely should not be an excuse.
And also, I mean, in Japan, I was a kind of person who think about global issues and problems, but what we would do was just thinking about it and thinking about how we could do something if we were a policymaker. But here, what I learned in UWC is we can actually do something, even though we are not a policymaker. We can start something, even no matter how small it is. We can start something. And for example, here, me and some friends of mine started a cast called Science with Kids, where we teach kids science through some kind of experiments. And I mean, being from Japan, I had a strong background in science, and I was thinking how I could help people who are willing to learn but don't have resources simply. And we just came up with this idea, and yeah, it went well. And before that, I had never thought I could do such a thing, like launching something and actually having an impact on community. And specifically talking about UWC Dilijan, since we're set in small community of Dilijan, it is easier to start something, take action, or launch something and have an impact on community. And
and bringing this back to the two sisters, so I believe that while we're talking about the UWC values, it's really good because they demonstrated action and personal example by programming their website, and they finally got recognized when they actually were published in the Straits Times. So now we actually have a very interesting person, a speaker who's coming up next. They are someone who we believe embodies UWC values as well. They are Eka Horska. And basically, I believe that the values that apply to them are personal responsibility and compassion and service. So a bit of background, Eka Horska is an artist by education based in Yerevan who funded the Artissimo NGO with its Veskaporic Center for Children with Special Needs in Martoni village in Armenia. With the highest rating in Armenia and a huge stigma about disability in the community, the center has been a salvation for many families in Martuni. And I believe this goes back to our talk about education, about how we are always so invested in education here and how it can make a change. And so now it's time to focus on Eka Horska.
Բարև ձեզ, ես Լիլիթն եմ, UWC Diligent-ի առաջին կուրսի ուսանողն եմ, այսօր խոսելու եմ, զրուցելու եմ Էկա Հորսկայի հետ, ով մասնագիտությամբ օպերային երգչուհի է, մանկավար, մեթոդաբան, և 2017 թվականին Մարտունի համայնքում ստեղծել է Արտիսիմո մշակութային հկն, ոսկեփորիկ հկն, որի նպատակն է լուծել տարատեսակ խնդիրներ, բնորոշ տվյալ տարածաշրջանին արվեստի բուժիչ և կառուցողական ուժով։ Բարև ձեզ Էկա, խնդրում եմ կներկայացնեք ձեզ։
Ողջույն, շնորհակալություն ներկայացնելու համար, ես մեծ սիրով ձեզ եմ ողջունում և մեր ունկնդրին և ողջունում եմ այս հրաշալի նախաձեռնությունը։ Ներկայացնելով ինձ, ես մեծ սիրով, ինչպես դուք ասեցիք, ես մասնագիտությամբ օպերային երգչուհի եմ, բայց այսօր պատիվ ունեմ աշխատելու բազմաթիվ երեխաների հետ և արդեն ոչ միայն Գեղարքունիքի մարզի, այլ նաև այլ տարածաշրջանների և մարզերի և որպես այդպիսին ընդհանրապես երեխայի հետ և կարծում եմ, որ այն ամենը, ինչի մասին մենք խոսելու ենք, ինչպես դուք նշեցիք, Արտիսիմո մշակութային հասարակական կազմակերպությունը և Արտիսիմոյի ծրագիր ոսկեփորիկ զարգացման կենտրոնը, ես երևի մի փոքր ներկայացնեմ ու պատմեմ պատմությունը, այո։ Շատ լավ, Արտիսիմո հասարակական կազմակերպությունը, ինչպես ասեցիք, այո, հենց բառը արդեն ինքնին պատմում է մեր գործունեության մասին, այսինքն արտի գերադրական լինելու միջոցով մենք փորձում ենք լուծել տարատեսակ խնդիրներ և Արտիսիմո հասարակական կազմակերպության ծրագրերից մեկն է ոսկեփորիկ զարգացման կենտրոնը, որը ստեղծվել է 3 տարի առաջ Մարտունի համայնքում։ Այդ գաղափարը շատ պատահական էր, ճիշտն ասած, որպես այդպիսին դա ծրագիր չէր, նպատակասլված ծրագիր չէր, պարզապես շատ հետաքրքիր համադրություն էր մի քանի հոգու, մի քանի կամքի և մենք մեկնարկեցինք ծրագիրը իբրև զարգացման կենտրոն, որպես այդպիսին Մարտունի համայնքում։ Որոշ ժամանակ անց, երբ որ մենք զբաղվում էինք տիպիկ երեխաների հետ, այսինքն հասարակության մեջ այդպես երեխաներ, որոնք ոչ մի արտարոց խնդիրներ չունեն, հարցախույզից հետո պատկերացրեցինք ու հասկացանք, որ Մարտունիում բազմաթիվ է առանձնահատուկ երեխաների թիվը։ Եվ այդպես ներկայացավ արդեն իսկ ներկայիս աշխատող ոսկեփորիկ զարգացման կենտրոնը։ Եթե կուզեք ավելի մանրամասն պատմեմ կենտրոնի մասին, թե ինչ-որ կոնկրետ հարցեր կլինեն։
Կասեք ինչու որոշեցիք հենց արվեստի միջոցով այդ հարցին մոտենալ։
Նախ եւ առաջ, որտեղ ինքս արվեստագետ եմ եւ իմ ամենաարդի շարժիչ ուժը հենց արվեստն է, երաժշտությունը, բայց երևի ես մեր ունկնդրին ձեր թույլտվությամբ տանեմ դեպի այն պատմությունը, որտեղից որ մենք սկսել էինք, ու ընդհանրապես ինչ է ոսկեփորիկ զարգացման կենտրոնը։ Այո, ոսկեփորիկ զարգացման կենտրոնը արվեստի միջոցով այսօր լուծում է տարատեսակ խնդիրներ, որոնք վերաբերվում են հաշմանդամություն ունեցող առանձնահատուկ երեխաներին։ Ինչպես ասացի 3 տարի առաջ մեկնարկելով ծրագիրը, ես շատ պատահական հանդիպում եմ մի երեխայի, որը ցավոք սրտի դեզինտեգրացված է եւ իր առողջական խնդիրների պատճառով տարիներ շարունակ չունի շփում մարդկանց հետ։ Անգամ ավելին ասեմ, շատ երկար տարիներ անգամ պարզապես դուրս չի գալիս, այսինքն բակ չի դուրս գալիս եւ արև չի տեսնում, այսպես շատ ծանր իրավիճակում ենք հանդիպում երեխային։ Եվ ինձ համար ես ինքս որպես անհատ հարց եմ տալիս, թե ինչով է պայմանավորված այս երեխայի այսպիսի իրավիճակը, այս տեսակ դեզինտեգրացիան։ Եվ հասկանում եմ, որ մենք այսօր ապրում ենք այն ժամանակներում, որտեղ յուրաքանչյուրս պարտավորված ենք այդ հարցը տալ գոնե մեկ անգամ ինքներս մեզ, իսկ ինչ ենք մենք անում, որպեսզի այդ երեխաները ինտեգրված լինեն այն հասարակությունում, որը ըստ մեզ կոչվում է նորմալ, կոչվում է առողջ եւ այլն։ Եվ այդ երեխային հանդիպելիս ես ինքս ինձ այդ հարցը տվեցի եւ լինելով արվեստագետ հասկացա, որ շատ քիչ բան եմ արել այդ տեսակ երեխաների համար, իրենց առանձնահատկությունները ընդունելու համար ոչինչ չեմ արել մինչ օրս եւ այդ իսկ պատճառով որոշեցի գրել ինտեգրման ծրագիր, որի կարևոր գործիքը լինելու է արվեստը։ Այսինքն արվեստի միջոցով մենք ստեղծում էինք այնպիսի միջավայր, որտեղ թե առանձնահատուկ երեխան, թե սովորական հասարակության ներկայացուցիչը կկարողանան շփվել նույն հարթակի վրա։ Եվ դա վերաբերվում էր նաև մեր արվեստագետներին, որոնք մեծ սիրով ընդունում էին իմ հրավերքները։ Եվ կամաց այդպիսի ինտեգրման ծրագրեր իրականացնելուց հետո մենք արդեն սկսեցինք լուծել շատ կոնկրետ խնդիրներ, որովհետև մեզ հասանելի դարձան այդ խնդիրները, որոնք միգուցե տարիներ առաջ ոչ մեկիս մտքով չէր անցնում, որ այո, մեր հանրապետությունում կան առանձնահատուկ մարդիկ, առավել եւս բալիկներ, ում պետք է օգնություն, ուշադրություն եւ որոշակի առանձնահատուկ մոտեցում։ Եվ այդպես հենց արվեստով մենք սկսեցինք բուժել մեր բալիկներին, բերել իրենց մեկ ընդհանուր դաշտ հասարակության մեջ։ Նաև հարկ եմ համարում նշել, որ ծրագրերը նպաստել են նաև հասարակության բուժիչ ուժ հանդիսանալու համար, այսինքն շատ անգամ հասարակությունն էլ պատրաստ չի ընդունել որևէ մեկիս առանձնահատկությունը։ Եվ կրկին արվեստը այստեղ հանդիսացավ լավագույն մեթոդը, լավագույն գործիքը այդ բոլոր խոչընդոտները շտկելու համար։
Իսկ ինչպիսի դիրքորոշում ունեցան Մարտունի համայնքը եւ ինչպիսի արձագանքներ լսեցիք մարդկանցից։
Շատ կարևոր հարց եք տալիս, Լիլիթ ջան, որտեղ ես հենց շատ սահուն անցա դեպի հասարակություն ու դեպի համայնքը։ Իրականում ինձ համար մարտունեցիները հերոս են, ես դες պարզ ասեմ, ես իրենց շատ սիրում եմ, որովհետև ես իրենց հետ միասին անցա այդ փուլը, անցումային փուլը եւ ես ինքս ինձ չեմ տարանջատում հասարակության այդ անդամ լինելուց, որովհետև ես առաջին հերթին, ինչպես ասեցի, ինքս մտածեցի, արդյոք ես մինչև օրս ինչ որ բան արել եմ եւ պատրաստ եմ ընդունել այդ երեխային, թե ոչ։ Եվ ասեմ, որ Մարտունի համայնքը շատ հեշտ արձագանքեց այն շարժմանը, որ մենք սկսեցինք եւ անկախ բոլոր բարդություններից դարձավ իրական մասնակից։ Մենք ունեցել ենք միջոցառումներ, որտեղ տիպիկ հասարակության թիվը բնականաբար ավելի մեծ էր, իսկ մեր առանձնահատուկ երեխաների թիվը ավելի փոքր, բայց դա ընդհանրապես չէր խանգարում ընկալմանը։ Իհարկե, կարծրատիպային մոտեցումներ եղել են, բայց ես հակված եմ ոչ թե մեղադրել, այլ ինձ համար ամենակարևորը լուծումներ գտնելն է։ Եվ մարտունեցին այսօր ես դա պատվով եմ արձանագրում, ինքը պատրաստ էր լուծումներ գտնել, ինքը պատրաստ էր փոխվել։ Եվ ես դա ասում եմ սկսած մեր շահառու ընտանիքներից, ընդհուպ մինչև համայնքապետարան եւ համայնքի ղեկավար։ Այսինքն, եթե մենք աշխատեցինք այն համայնքում, ամենակարևորը, որ պատրաստ էր փոփոխություններին, պատրաստ էր ընդունել սխալները, պատրաստ էր տեսնել բացթողումները եւ շտկել այն։ Եվ ես միանշանակ կարող եմ ասել, որ այսօրվա ոսկեփորիկ զարգացման կենտրոնի հաջողության գրավականներից մեկն է հասարակության հենց պատրաստակամությունը։
Շատ լավ։ Իսկ ինչպիսի հոգեբանական ազդեցություն ունեցավ ձեր նախաձեռնությունը ձեր վրա եւ ինչպես հաղթահարեցիք այդ դժվար մարտահրավերները։
Որպեսզի լիարժեք այդ հարցին պատասխանեմ, ես երևի նորից պետք է գնամ հենց այն առաջի դրվագը, որտեղից սկսվեց ոսկեփորիկ զարգացման կենտրոնի ներկայիս առաքելությունն ու աշխատանքը, եւ ավելի մանրամասն պատմեմ ձեզ մի դրվագ, այսինքն կոնկրետ հենց այդ բալիկի մասին, ում հետ մենք հանդիպեցինք եւ ես միանշանակ կարող եմ ասել, որ մեր փոքրիկ Վահեն փոխեց իմ մտահորիզոնն ու իմ մոտեցումը առ այն, ինչ որ մենք անում ենք հիմա ու անում ենք շատ մեծ թիմով։ Վահեն ստիպեց ինձ մտածել եւ տեսնել իմ թերությունները, լինելով առանձնահատուկ երեխա, Վահեն, ում հետ մենք հանդիպեցինք, այդ ժամանակ 16 տարեկան էր, ցավոք սրտի ինքը ունի մանկական ուղղային կաթված եւ շատ երկար տարիներ, ինչպես ես ասեցի, ոչ մի միջամտություն երեխայի առողջությանը չի եղել։ Եվ ծնողը համարելով, որ դա միայն իր լուծելու խնդիրն է, իր խաչն է, այդպես ասած, ինչպես շատ շատերը արտահայտվում են, բացարձակ ոչ մի բան չէր անում երեխայի կյանքի որակը բարելավելու համար։ Ցավոք սրտի այդ այն հիվանդությունն է, որտեղ միանշանակ օգնել չի կարելի, բայց որոշակի բարելավման մեթոդներ բնականաբար կան։ Եվ ես ձեզ անկեղծ ասեմ, առաջին անգամ բալիկին եւ իր ընտանիքը հանդիպելիս ես շատ տարբեր հուզական ապրումներ ունեցա, սկսած մեղադրելուց, ագրեսիայից, որ ինչպես կարելի է այդպես երեխային տարիներ շարունակ ոչինչ չմատուցել, այսինքն ես սկսեցի զայրանալ ծնողի վրա, հետո իմ զայրույթը տարածվեց հիվանդանոցի վրա եւ բուժաշխատողների վրա, հետո իմ զայրույթը տարածվեց հասարակության վրա եւ համայնքապետերի վրա, այդպես ասած, այսինքն համայնքի պատասխանատուների վրա։ Եվ այսպես շրջանը գնալով, երբ որ բացվում էր, ես հասկացա, որ ես ինքս եմ այդ շրջանում եւ ոչ մի բանով չեմ տարբերվում այն մարդկանցից, ում վրա զայրանում եմ։ Եվ հենց այդ վեկտորի փոփոխությունը, այդպես ասած, հա, նշանակետը, երբ որ ես տեսա ինքս ինձ վրա, ես հասկացա, որ ես պետք է սկսեմ գործել, ոչ թե մեղադրել, այլ գործել։ Ամենաառաջի երևի հենց մարտահրավերը դա էր, որ պետք էր սկսել ինձանից, ես ինքս սկսեցի ինձանից եւ մեծ սիրով տեսա, թե ինչպես է այդ փոփոխությունը ճառագայթում, բառից բուն իմաստով։ Այդ ճառագայթեց իմ ընկերների վրա, ընտանիքների վրա, դոնորների վրա եւ մինչեւ հիմա ճառագայթում է արդեն ես հույս ունեմ, որ նաև այլ մարզերին մենք կհասնենք մեր ճառագայթմամբ, այսօր արդեն պատիվ ունենք Վայոց ձորում կենտրոն մեկնարկելու, կենտրոնի մասնաճյուղը բացելու, ինչը որ հենց արգասիքն է մեր հաջողված աշխատանքի։ Բայց ավելի կոնկրետ վերադառնալով ձեր հարցին, ամենակարևոր մարտահրավերը եւ հոգեբանական աշխատանքը դա տեսնել քո թերությունները, տեսնել որտեղ ես դու թերացել այս կյանքում քո ճանապարհին։ Ես կարծում եմ, որ ես դա որոշակիորեն անցել եմ, իհարկե ոչ միանշանակ, որովհետեւ դեռ շատ բան ունենք անցնելու, բայց որոշակիորեն ես գտնում եմ, որ այդ ճանապարհը արդեն անցած է։
Շատ շնորհակալություն պատասխանի համար։ Ձեր փորձառության ընթացքում ամենաքաջալերող եւ ընդհակառակը ամենաընկճող փորձառությունը որն էր, որ ունեցել եք։
Ընկճող փորձառությունից սկսեմ, որովհետեւ այդպեսինը չկա, անկեղծ ասեմ, չկա ոչ մի փորձառություն, որը անցնելիս չես լուսավորվում, որը անցնելիս չես ամրանում ու թրջվում։ Դրա համար ես կարող եմ մեծ համարձակությամբ ասել, որ ոչ մի ընկճող փորձառություն չի եղել։ Եղել են բարդ իրավիճակներ, որոնց հաղթահարելը ինքնին արդեն մարտահրավեր էր, եւ ընդունելով այդ մարտահրավերը շատ մեծ ուժ ենք մենք ստացել։ Ես խոսում եմ թե իմ թիմի անունից։ Իսկ ոգևորող ես երևի կառանձնացնեմ վերջերս մի փոքրիկ դրվագ եղած, որովհետև կարծում եմ, որ դա հասանելի կլինի յուրաքանչյուրին, քանի որ հիմա ամբողջ աշխարհը ապրում է համաճարակի, այդպես ասած, վտանգի մեջ, եւ մենք բոլորս մանավանդ երբ որ Հայաստանում արդեն արձանագրվեց կարանտինային ընթացքը եւ պարետի սահմանափակումները, մենք բոլորս հայտնվեցինք որոշակի կոլապսի մեջ։ Եվ ես վստահ եմ, որ չկա տենց մարդ, ում չանդրադառնար դա թե հոգեպես, թե տեխնիկապես կյանքում, հա, եւ դրա հետ կապված շատ դրական մի հատ բան եմ ուզում ձեզ պատմել, այսինքն ինչը որ feedback տվեց արդեն ամբողջ անցած ճանապարհից։ Սկսեմ շատ կարճ փորձեմ ներկայացնել, մի խոսքով այդ կոլապսային վիճակում, երբ որ չէր կարելի տեղաշարժվել, բոլորը տենց պանիկայի մեջ էին եւ դա իրոք սենց անհանգստացնում էր իրավիճակը ամբողջ աշխարհը եւ դա այդ արձագանքը հասավ նաեւ Հայաստան։ Ես Պարետի բոլոր օրենքներին, այդպես ասած, հետևելով միևնույն է գալիս էի Մարտունի եւ փորձում էի հասկանալ ոնց ենք մենք մեր աշխատանքը կազմակերպելու հետ այսօր, որովհետեւ հասկանում ենք, որ ամեն ինչ փոխվում է։ Եվ մասնակցեցինք ժողովի մեր թիմակիցների հետ եւ ասեմ, որ մեզ մոտ շատ ակտիվ կամավորական խումբ կա երեխաների, այսինքն տիպիկ առողջ, այսպես ասած, երեխաների թիմ կա, որը որ լիարժեք թիմակիցներ են, լինելով կամավոր, իրենք մասնակցում են յուրաքանչյուր որոշում կայացնելու ժողովներին եւ ընթացիկ աշխատանքի։ Եվ այդ ժողովներ, որտեղ մենք փորձում էինք արդեն ոնց որ ձևափոխել ներկա ընթացքը, եւ մեր բալիկներից մեկը ժողովից հետո ես հասկացա, ասենց ինքը տիրույթից դուրս եկավ եւ ես իրեն արդեն հանդիպում եմ մեկ այլ սենյակում, ինքը բավականին հուզված, սառած հայացքով նստած է դատարկ սայլակի դիմաց, դատարկ ամբասայլակի դիմաց, այդ սայլակը միշտ ծառայում է այն երեխաներին, որոնք չեն կարող քայլել մեր կենտրոնում։ Եվ սենց մտորում է, մտքերով նստած է սայլակի առաջ։ Եվ երբ որ ես մոտենում եմ Նարեկին, մեր հերոսի անունը Նարեկ է, ու հարցնում եմ ինչ ա եղել Նարեկ ջան, ինչ-որ բան է պատահել, հասկացա, որ երեխան ուղղակի հուզված է եւ դա բավականին տեսանելի էր։ Նարեկը խորը շունչ քաշելով, անգամ մի փոքր հուզված, նայեց ինձ ու ասեց. գիտես ինչ ասում եմ, ես մի բան եմ մտածում, որ կարանտինը կանցնի ու ես նորից կգնամ դպրոց։ Իսկ այս բալիկները երբեք չեն կարանտինից դուրս չեն գա, իրանք միշտ կարանտինի մեջ են։ Եվ երեխան այդ փաստը արձանագրելուց հետո ասենց շատ որոշակիորեն վեր կացավ, ասեց, գիտես կարանտինը հենց որ անցնի, ես իրենց ավելի պինդ կգրկեմ։ Ես բացատրեմ ինչու է այդ դրվագը շատ կարևոր ու հաղթական ինչ որտեղ, քանզի այսօր ես պատիվ ունեմ ապրելու արդեն այն երեխայի կողքը, ով վաղը միանշանակ երբեք չի մոռանալու, որ կա հասարակություն, ում կարանտինը երբեք չի ավարտվի, ում կարանտինը լինելու է ցավոք սրտի մշտապես, իրենք կարանտինից հետո չեն վեր կանալու այդ սայլակներից ու չեն գնալու դպրոց։ Ցավոք սրտի Հայաստանի Հանրապետությունում, առավել եւս մարզերում եւ փոքր համայնքներում անգամ դպրոցները համապատասխան չեն, որպեսզի այդ երեխաները իրենց առանձնահատկություններով հանդերձ կարողանան այցելել դպրոցները։ Ուստի մենք պարտավոր ենք արձանագրել, որ ուշ թե շուտ մեզ համար կարանտինը կանցնի, բայց այդ բալիկների համար կարանտինը երբեք չի անցնել։ Եվ երբեք իրենց սահմանափակումները, որոնք մենք սենց շատ դժվարությամբ փորձեցինք անցնել, իրենց սահմանափակումները կրկին չեն փոխվելու։ Դրվագը իրականում շատ տխուր է, ես մինչև հիմա հիշելով այդ դրվագը միշտ հուզվում եմ, բայց հուզմունքի հետ մեկտեղ ես շատ ուրախ եմ, որ մեր գործունեությունը ստիպեց այդ փոքրիկ երեխային մտածել այն մասին, որ այսօր ինքը իր ջերմությամբ կարող է նպաստել այդ երեխայի կյանքի երջանկությանը, ում կարանտինը ցավոք սրտի չի անցնի։ Այդպես։
Շատ շնորհակալություն։ Ինձ թվում է շատ մարդկանց կհետաքրքրվի կամավորություն անել ձեր կենտրոնում։ Կարող եք հարցազրույցից հետո կոնտակտներ թողեք, եթե դա հասանելի է բոլորին։ Եվ վերջի հարցը եմ ուզում ձեզ տալ, որն էր ինչ կասեք այն մարդկանց, ովքեր նմանատիպ նախաձեռնությամբ են հանդես ուզում գալ, բայց վախեր ունեն, մտորումներ ունեն։ Ինչ խորհուրդ կտաք։
Ես խորհուրդ կտամ իմ անձնական փորձից, պինդ գրկեք ձեր բոլոր վախերը, որովհետև ձեր վախերը գրկելուց դուք ավելի շուտ իրենց կհաղթահարեք, եւ գրկելով վախերի հետ մեկտեղ անպայման գործեք, անպայման գնացեք առաջ, որովհետև Վախը իրականում բավականին ուժեղ շարժիչ ուժ է եւ շատ անգամ մեզ ստիպում է մտածել, տեսնել եւ դուրս գալ այդ իրավիճակից։ Ես վախին բացասական չեմ նայում, ամենակարևորը գնալ առաջ, շարժվել առաջ, հավատալ, իսկ եթե կարիք կա օգնելու, դիմեք մեզ, մենք ձեզ մեծ սիրով ցույց կտանք ինչպես են հաղթահարվում թե փոքր, թե մեծ դժվարություններ ու վախեր։
Իսկ ձեր կատարած գործունեության ընթացքում ամենամեծ արարքը որն է, որ դուք շատ հպարտանում եք դրանով, որը կառուցեցնենք։
Ես գիտեմ, որ ժամանակը քիչ է մնացել ու ճիշտն ասած հպարտության մասին դժվարանում եմ խոսել, որտեղ իմ զգացմունքը չի, իմ զգացողությունը չի, բայց ես այսօր կկիսեմ մեր ունկնդրի հետ իմ երջանկությունը։ Երջանկությունս նրանում է, որ այսօր հնարավորություն ունեմ աշխատելու այդ երեխաների հետ։ Եվ ոչ միայն ես հնարավորություն ունեմ շարունակվելու, ամենակարևորը, ես հնարավորություն ունեմ ընդլայնվելու, ես հնարավորություն ունեմ փոխանցելու այն բոլոր երեխաներին, ում հետ հանդիպում եմ, փոխանցելու իրենց իմ սերը, իմ թիմակիցների ջերմությունն ու լույսը։ Հպարտություն չեմ կարող անվանել, բայց որպես առաքելություն, այո, ես երջանիկ եմ, որ այսօր ես ստանձնել եմ հենց այս առաքելությունը։
Շատ շնորհակալություն հետաքրքիր հարցազրույցի եւ սպառիչ պատասխանների համար։
Շնորհակալություն Լիլի ջան, նույնպես շատ ուրախ էի եւ եւս մեկ անգամ ողջունում եմ մեր ունկնդրին։ Շնորհակալություն։
Alright, so that was another lovely interview we had, yeah?
Yeah, it was a good interview, and welcome back, everyone. It's us again. If you joined just now, I'm Shintaro from Japan.
And I'm Javen from Malaysia. And we just heard a lot about Artissimo NGO and the person behind it, Eka Horska. So that was really, really inspiring. And unfortunately, you know, like all good things, you know, this must come to an end.
Yeah.
And that was unfortunately our last interview for today. So we would just like to say thank you to everyone who participated today in UWC Day. And you know, given the virtual nature of this day, I think we would just like to say thank you to all who actually watched, because you know it's never easy watching something on Zoom.
And yeah, for those who watched, you're in a way supporting us to share our mission values. And I want to say thank you, and I also want to say thank you to everyone who's supporting in a way, in any way, donors, founders, even people who are just watching.
And also, like, we want to say thank you to Future Studio discussion platform for hosting us today. And before we go, I think we just want to talk a little bit more about a reminder of why we are here. So yes, you know, today was UWC Day, you know, and I think it's you know, although all of us here claim to be change makers and you know we united by the mission, I think every year it's important that we be reminded of this mission. And it is also why this day is not only limited to current students, but also to alumni and also to just basically national companies around the world. And before we leave, I want to leave you with a story or sort of an anecdote which I was told when I was younger. So as you know, the chopstick is a very popular utensil in Asia. I think as you know, it's a very popular utensil. And so when I was younger, you know, an analogy that was taught to me was, you know, if you have one chopstick and someone decides to break it, it was not really easy, yeah, because it's one just stick. But if you have many chopsticks bundled together, it is near impossible to break even one of them. So I think it's a very important reminder of how united we can overcome any adversity.
Yeah, and also that expression, that saying is, I think it's interesting because, I mean, we are from Asia and chopsticks are a pretty normal thing for us, but for some people it's not. In fact, we don't have chopsticks in the cafeteria here. And it's just beautiful to see those like differences, like subtle differences that we have in like in daily basis.
Yeah, because like although I say chopsticks, I have heard when I told this story to a friend here, the person said that they heard the same story, but it was arrows used instead. So I think it's one of the beautiful things about UWC, where like, everyone, even though we are so different, we are united by the same common things.
Yeah.
And I think both of us can say that, you know, as you know, coming into UWC, we were very different people compared to who we are today.
Yeah.
And you know, UWC just helped me grow and mature, and you know, it has helped me learn that people, regardless of their differences, they can be right as well.
Yeah.
And you know, I feel that if UWC values really resonate with you, you should definitely apply next year to your national community.
And I too, of course, encourage you to come to UWC. And some people might not be here, 17 years old or something. So, but yeah, I want to encourage you to support our community in any way you can.
And I think also what's important to know is that you don't have to come to UWC to be a change maker. I think everyone can be a change maker in their own right, and it's a matter of what you do with the resources you have given. We've seen so many examples today. You know, we've seen stories of how people in Lebanon have helped each other after the exposure. We've seen how people, we see how those two sisters in Singapore help people who was affected by the COVID-19. So I think the biggest takeaway from today is that you don't have to be a someone to do something. You don't have to be a policymaker to do something. Yeah.
Okay. So.
And I think there's a video. There is a video coming soon. We hope you enjoy this video. And once again, thank you to all of you for watching us today, and thank you to Future Studio Discussion Platform for hosting us today. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.